As the leader of the Booner Path, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the fuck up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Welcome, everybody, to Crunch Time with Jeff Booner, Lukas, and Gentry. It is Wednesday, August 28th. Booner, we know the roster. Now we know the practice squad. We found out that information today. Teams are still making some moves, getting together their practice squad, claiming players.
Yes, sir.
We'll get into all of it today. We have all your Lions updates, news, everything they did today, and we'll talk a little later in the show about the NFL as a whole. But Boone, big day today for the Lions.
Massive day. I keep thinking this. I said it yesterday. Jeff, the first hour of the Booner Path started yesterday when those 53-man 4 o'clock came around. Guess what? That roster came around, the Booner Path officially took off. It was like we were sitting there at a red light all off season, and then just all of a sudden it was green light. Now it's go time. We finally get to see what the 53-man looks like. We get to see the practice squad, and after that, like essentially those are the guys you're rolling with all year. Unless there's a big trade, or obviously you can waive someone, but like essentially that's it. Like, here we go. Like, the guys on the practice squad, those are the guys that are going to be coming up and down and helping out if they kind of make improvements. But we finally know. I felt like the longest offseason of all time after losing an NFC Championship game. I'm sorry to bring just bad taste to people's mouths, but that's what it felt like, the longest offseason of all time. And then the Super Bowl expectations all offseason. It's like, all right, here we go, boys. Like, we got the roster. We know all we have to do now is just go win some football games.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, covering the offseason, it's fun because, you get to see a different team than you saw last year. Sometimes good for others, sometimes bad. The Lions, you're expecting not only for them to make a Super Bowl, but for many to win a Super Bowl. So it felt like, and I know this time around was a little different, and a lot of more, tough decisions had to be made. Not that cutting players is already tough for Dan and Brad, but this year specifically, the roster's so good that you're cutting players that are pretty good players. And they brought a lot of those guys back to the practice squad. Boone, I looked at this practice squad. I thought, you put this practice squad together in the UFL, no disrespect, they might make some noise. I mean, you got some NFL guys that have played around on roster, started some games. I mean, and we'll get into it, but just to give you a hint, I mean, Allen Robinson's on there. You got Tim Patrick on there, Jake Fromm's on there, Kyle Pecco, Mitchell Agude, some pretty good football players, man. On that roster.
I saw
Isaac Ukwu, I believe. Is he on the practice? Yep.
Oh, yeah. Come on now. Isaac Ukwu made that should count as the pizza bet. Is his name on the practice squad?
But what about Matty Betts? He didn't make
Matty Betts gone. Not on the practice squad. Like, I don't think he signed with another NFL team. So Matty Betts heading back to Canada, to the CFL, to go play football again for another year.
And I gotta say, man, like big shout out to him for chasing his dream, playing in the NFL, trying. And he got a sack in the preseason. Like, even though we have this friendly bet wager between us, like I don't want to act like I'm rooting on a man's downfall. Like you know what? He gave it his all. Maybe he gets another look elsewhere. Maybe he makes a practice squad somewhere. I wish him nothing but the best, but I'm still going to be thoroughly enjoying my 2 pizza pies. Even though I do wish him the best. Nothing personal.
It's going to probably end up being 3 because he's not on the practice squad, so he can't get a sack if he's not on the practice squad. So it's tough. 3 pizzas. It's tough for me, but I'm with you. Like, he went out there and he chased it, and like, respect to him. Obviously, like, Ukwu ends up making it. The practice squad, to your point, Jeff, like, I saw, shout out Mike Payton, who was on yesterday. I saw him tweet out and say, hey, this practice squad might be able to beat the Lions 2021 roster. Like, that's how good this is. Like, the depth of it. And that was something I think Lions fans and me and us, like, as we're talking about it all off season, you're like, we're at training camp. Like, I guess you could say, like, taking it for granted a little bit how actual good some of these, like, backups are. And I know, like, in New York, they didn't look that great. And, like, some of the plays, like, they start off for Kansas City. Remember, they held Patrick Mahomes to 2 possessions, held him to 2 field goals, and they were able to get stops on Patrick Mahomes in the starting Kansas City Chiefs offense.
Yep.
So like these guys can play, and like they went out and got more wide receivers. And I know we're going to go through each position group and all the players, but like Brad Holmes has put together such a great roster from top to bottom on the practice squad. And like, you could tell that they like thoroughly sat down and said, hey, this is what we need. Like a lot of these guys on the practice squad, Dan Campbell said it last week. Like, if you guys don't think the practice squad means anything, majority of these guys on the practice squad at some point in this season are going to have to make an impact on the season. Like he was like, we're going to need all 69 of these players. Like, it's not 53. We're going to need every single player that is on this team, including practice squad guys. And I think you're going to see some guys get moved up at times. There's going to be injuries. You already saw the Broderick situation. So Kyle Peckel probably ends up getting moved up for the first few weeks. Like, there's going to be just movement all around. And I think, like, I don't know where you're at, Jeff, but I'm very comfortable with what this roster's at. And I know we have a segment later about more on that, but very, very comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, looking at it last year, was Khalil Dorsey on the practice squad? I don't know for certain.
Not 100% sure. I didn't look at last year's. I can look up last year's practice squad.
But guys that are called up from the practice squad, I mean, you need, and Dan he's talked about it a ton, how much he values the practice squad. And one thing that is guaranteed in football in the NFL is injuries. Guys are going to get hurt. It's just how it is.
Yep.
So if you have a pretty good practice squad, or guys that, you know, are capable, or guys that are very familiar with how you want to play your system, which guys that they, you know, that weren't able to make the roster from training camp, obviously on the practice squad, that is a benefit. And they even got Tim Patrick, who I don't think will be on the practice squad for much longer. We'll see how that trends. Yeah. I'm assuming he'll make the roster, but you're absolutely right. I mean, even guys like Isaac Ukwu, he didn't make the roster, but you have an injury or two, and boom, Isaac Ukwu is playing for you in week 7, you know, somewhere. So you're absolutely right about that.
Can I give you a little context from this year's to last year's practice squad? Like, think, like, guys, like, genuinely, and we're about to go over the 2024 practice squad this year's, but last season you had David Blau as your quarterback. You had Zonovan Knight on the practice squad, which he just got cut and didn't get brought back to the practice squad because you have Jamar Jefferson. You had Dylan Drummond, Maurice Alexander, and Darius Fountain. You upgrade that practice squad, guys, to Allen Robinson, DPJ, and Tim Patrick. You have tight end Daryl Daniels. You have Shane Zylstra on your practice squad this year, and James Mitchell. Like, that's how good and how the depth of this team has gotten. You have Yodi, who obviously has made the team, I believe. Michael Neese, who I don't know I don't know if Michael Neese made the active roster. I don't know if he got brought back today. We'll see here. I'm not 100% sure on that. I want to make that, but Quentin Bohanna, you guys remember Quentin Bohanna? He's a
big fella. Big fella.
Who got brought back last year, no longer this year. Now you have a guy like Isaac Ukwu, who's in place, obviously not an interior, but a defensive lineman. Chris Smith, who was as well this year. Trevor Nowatzki, who is on the active roster now. Chase Lucas, upgrade. I think this year you upgraded all your corners. Brandon Joseph, who made the active roster this year, has made. So, like, you have to think that, like, from last year to this year, like, there's upgrades on both ends. So Michael needs to make the active roster. Like, there's different parts of this. It's last year there are guys who are on the practice squad who they developed, and now this year they're on the 53-man. Like, there's multiple guys. And then as well, there's guys that last year who were on the practice squad who you upgraded the squad. So that's where I think it's big time looking at from last year to this year.
The practice squad is significantly upgraded. I mean, we're going to go through it. Welcome, Klotz, to the program.
Shout out. How are we, fellas?
Yeah, well, you know what, Klotz? Look at this. I mean, look at this practice squad.
Can I say one thing?
It ain't looking too bad now. I mean, you look at quarterback Jake Fromm. Okay, we already know no Nate Sudfeld is not on the practice squad. Note that.
That's instant dramatic upgrade. Now the talent on the practice squad can develop now, fellas. That's what we're talking about.
I saw someone tweet. This isn't me. I want to give credit. One of the Lions beat writers, but they put he's like how significant was Jake Fromm's like 8 plays. Dude got a practice squad spot off like 8 plays, 8 passing plays. I mean, that's essentially what it was. And now he
didn't even take 11 on 11 snaps for like a week.
All they needed to see was the ball come out of Jake Fromm's hands, and they said, "Yep, he's better than Sudfeld." And that's all they needed to see. And they said, "Well, this guy, puts it where it needs to be." and he's better than Nate Sudfeld. And then you got running back Jamar Jefferson. We talked about him a little yesterday. Tim Patrick, obviously, don't expect him to be there for too long. Yeah. Donovan Peoples-Jones, it says here not confirmed by team yet, but I've seen it everywhere.
The DPJ thing, though, I'll say this. It's the most weirdest. It's the weirdest situation I think I've ever seen. Like, there's reports earlier today, DPJ is coming back from Jordan Schultz that tweets out, DPJ is coming back. Practice squad gets announced from the Detroit Lions. No DPJ. Everyone's like, where's DPJ? An hour after the practice squad gets released, Adam Schefter, DPJ is going to sign with the practice squad. So it's like, is he going to, like, does this guy just keep getting brought back? Like, how many phone calls is he having with Brad Holmes being like, dude, we don't know what's going on with you, actually. Like, what is happening with DPJ? It's weird.
Very weird. I don't know. I mean, this, and by the way, I do want to give credit. Didn't say it before. This is on Pride of Detroit, so you can check. I think the Doc has one as well. So all you Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, Pride of Detroit, you can see kind of the practice squad tracker, and this is Pride of Detroit's. But yeah, I don't know with the DPJ stuff. I really don't. I mean, it seems like they want it to work so bad, and maybe there's Dan sitting over there going, "Hey man, just give him a little time now. Just give him a little time now. Let him go on the practice squad. Maybe he's got something to give." Right, and then they brought in Allen Robinson. So
I really like this too.
Yeah,
I like Allen Robinson.
I don't hate it either.
I think with the wide receivers, like, let's just be honest, outside of Tim Patrick, like DPJ and Allen Robinson, it's really just like last resort. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Donovan Peoples-Jones and Allen Robinson didn't have a yard for the Detroit Lions this season. Like, I would not be shocked. Like, the only way I think it happens is, like, if there is a significant injury or maybe two, to where it's like we have two guys out this week, we have to upgrade one of these guys, or just out of nowhere. Like, Allen Robinson has had like 100 yards each of his last like 2 seasons. DPJ had like 70 yards last year. So it's like to me, it's the Tim Patrick one's the most intriguing. I don't even know. Like, 2 out of the 3 of these guys probably won't even touch the field potentially for the Lions.
Yeah, and I'm with you, but at the end of the day, that's what they're expected to be. Like, if you're at the wide receiver 5, 6, like, that's what you're expecting. And these guys, as a wide receiver 6, I think are pretty reliable in that position, just because if to have a guy that's played meaningful snaps. Allen Robinson, at one point of his career, was a 1,300-yard wide receiver, hometown guy. Donovan Peoples-Jones, we know what he is. It's not much, but there's worse wide receivers in the league. It is just a weird situation to look at, though. I would have thought a guy like Kyle Pecco was brought back, and you see that. Like, even like Nate Sudfeld, I expected to see. Oh, okay, he did get brought back. I didn't see anything about
Kyle Pecco will probably be on the active roster in the next like week.
Yeah, I would hope so. But there's just guys that I would have expected to see come back before Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, I thought just the way that he kind of carried himself, and it could sound like a bash, but just it really looked like he didn't want to be out there. So when you think about Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, you'd think that'd leave a bad taste in their mouth. So I'm surprised to see him back. Although I like it, just because if we're talking about wide receiver 6, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a very fine wide receiver 6 if you need him to be.
And just a note here, they chose him over Darius Fountain to go to the practice squad.
And Caden Davis, both.
And Caden Davis. I mean, like, let that simmer for a second. So obviously they I don't know. I really don't. There's got to be
Kennedy over those two, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, it might have been a bigger gap than we thought from DPJ to those. Like, Caden Davis and like Darius Fountain might have fallen off. Like, we were only there for, a couple weeks, and then they had a couple weeks after the public was able to see. Darius Fountain must have had a bad week or so, because Tom Kennedy gets brought in before Caden Davis and Darius Fountain. Like, that's where I was a little like,
right.
Like, and those guys, I could be wrong. If anyone in the chat knows, like, those guys maybe got picked up by a different team, but I haven't seen anything of it. And maybe that's just because I'm only getting Lions alerts, but I don't know. I think more so the DPJ and Allen Robinson thing. It's, for me, I think it's like they're vets, and the ceiling for them potentially could be higher. Like, if DPJ somehow figures it out over the next month or two, he could end up giving you something, but it's just like you're sitting there just waiting for it to click. You're waiting for it to click. And like Darius Fountain, he was on the practice squad last year. Like, what you have with Darius Fountain at this point now. Like, you know it. And same with probably like Caden Davis and stuff. So like Allen Robinson, a new face in here, like maybe Allen Robinson will step up and make a play. Like, I think they just put their wide receiver ceiling a lot higher. Honestly,
yeah.
That's
and
what I think.
I think a lot of it has to do as well as like Tim Patrick insurance. Like, obviously he's coming off 2 major injuries. I think he will be able to stay the majority of the season healthy just because he's been playing wide receiver 4 or 5, not wide receiver 3. And I think watching him in the preseason, he looks pretty damn good. It's hard to tell because he's not going up against there with ones, but he looks healthy. So if something does happen, okay, now you can promote another vet who can play the X spot for the team. So I think that's what they're thinking too, because depth-wise, after Tim Patrick, it's obvious they have nothing on the outside. You can put J-Mo out there, but J-Mo's a guy they're going to be moving around. I think they just want somebody that when they run 12 personnel, when they run 22 personnel, whatever they want to run, they have a guy that we know, okay, in this playbook, in this personnel, he's the guy that's going to be out there. When you saw J-Mo as a rookie, it was mostly when Jamal Williams was in the backfield with Kabinda out there and they were just running plays or strictly just running plays. And I think that's what they're kind of looking for with the Tim Patricks of the world.
And I'm trying to, like, the Allen Robinson thing. I was a little surprised. And then you look back, and last year with the Steelers, he played with the Steelers, man. Like, so that was already a disaster. He had a couple hundred yards. Played with the Rams. Played 10 games. It was kind of up and down there. He had like a little over 300 yards. And then before that, it was the Bears, and that was kind of the ending of his Bears. The Bears era for him. And then the year prior to that, he had 1,200. Year before they had 1,100. So if you're asking Allen Robinson, he's 31 years old. He's not super old either. I don't really know what happens to guys like Allen Robinson. I know he's from Detroit. Injuries.
He had a foot injury that lingers.
I think it's like injuries and then situations. Like you just get put in you got to think in the NFL, there's always better guys coming into the league. So you start getting pushed down quick.
And that's why it's so hard for consistency, like for guys that have like 10 straight, like Mike Evans, for example, to have like 10, 12 years of just
crazy,
1,000 yards. And then you have like Allen Robinson, who was great for like a couple year stretch, and then it's over. I actually like the Allen Robinson move a lot. I do. And Noah Brown signed with the Commanders, so he got his he got some money to go there and play for Jaden Daniels. Yeah, and they were looking for wide receiver help. So I get it. It makes sense. But I don't hate this Allen Robinson addition. He's home. He's local. You don't need him to be Allen Robinson when he was with the Bears. You don't need him to be prime Allen Robinson. You need him to get a couple hundred yards, and he got it last year with the Steelers, dude. With the Steelers in that atrocious offense. So I actually don't like it. I know Tim Patrick is kind of the one everyone's talking about, but I don't mind. Hey, throw Allen Robinson a little. Hey, come on.
I think squad. You have a potential for all three of those guys to like anything could happen. I think the wide receivers outside of TK85, the TK85 might just be like a returner. Like, hey, if we might need someone to come in for this week to return, that might be TK. But the other guys, it's like, hey, if one of those guys ends up breaking out, you're living life there. Like now you have some depth. Like they're just taking a chance on some guys, which I'm completely fair with. Like, love it.
Yeah, I mean, you got the tight end, Shane Zylstra. He's on the practice squad. You mentioned it, James Mitchell. A couple got the offensive linemen that they brought in. Jamarco Jones, he's on the practice squad. Kingsley as well. So I know no Stephen Gilmore, I see. So,
see underneath the tight ends?
Oh, yeah. Ukwu.
I just want to say this.
Like that
I just want to talk to the people real quick because I mentioned this yesterday. I didn't know, and no one on this, none of the fans, none of the people listening to us, no one knew who was going to get picked up through waivers. I am so happy and so thrilled that these guys ended up making it, Agude and Ukwu. Like my biggest thing about them not keeping like an Ukwu is like you kept 4 edges. I kept saying this, like 4 edges. Look me in my eyes and someone tell me that you weren't like, hey, this edge group needs to be a little deeper. This edge group needed to be deep. It got deep today. It got the fact that you were able to bring back Isaac Ukwu and Mitchell Agude, 2 guys. And I know Matthew Betts, RIP Matthew Betts, love the guy, had a good preseason, did his thing. But just bringing 2 or 3 of those guys back who were competing for the number 52 and 53rd spot on this team in the edge position, I'm so happy, guys. Like, that was all I wanted. I just wanted depth at the edge spot to where, hey, Marcus Davenport, if he goes down for a week or 2, you bring up Ukwu. If James Houston needs a week or 2, you bring up Ukwu or Agude. So like that's where I think like the biggest out of this practice squad. Obviously, the wide receivers is huge that they were able to get those guys. The fact they were able to get these edges back in this building without having to go getting through waivers and doing that is unbelievable. Like, I'm so happy. That was my only worry yesterday, was they kept 4 edges and that edge group got like, you just didn't know what was going on. You Jeff, I don't know if you were here yet yesterday, but that was it. I was just like, my mind was going in circles, because since last October, I've been saying all I want was Brad Holmes to fix this edge group. And I felt like they finally had a little bit of depth on it. And now all these guys come back. And if there are people out there who are saying like, no, Booner, no one knew. I think 80% of the people thought a guy like Ukwu potentially could have got picked up for the preseason. He had a sack per game, a strip sack. Like, he was dominating. He was one of the highest PFF graded guys. Like, he had a great preseason. That man earned a spot. And I'm just happy he's back on the practice squad. Like, give me the edge.
Give me the edge. I completely align with your thinking. I mean, the other side of Hutch with Davenport, his injury history, Houston being up and down, I get why it's a worry. I would say this defensive line as a unit, I'm not concerned about. We all agree there. Aleem, DJ Reader, Aiden, like those 3 are remarkable. Davenport, if healthy, I think he could give you a little bit. I think he can give you a little
situation.
I do too.
Absolutely.
But
what was the word you said? What did you say? What was that word you said
Which
before? Starts with an H.
Who are you talking to, Boone?
Yeah,
Jeff. I'm talking to Jeff. What was the word you said? I think if
healthy.
That's like the only. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, it really is with Marcus Davenport and then James Houston. But the thing we're talking about, and to your point, Booner, if Davenport were to, which many think there is a possibility that he misses some games. Yeah, I mean, you're looking a little thin. You're looking a little thin there. And if you have Ukwu on the practice squad, it is a benefit. So
you kept 4 guys, 4 edge rushers. And that's counting Josh Pascal. Like, so essentially, like, that's a guy that goes in and out. 3 guys. Like, I don't know if you want to count Josh Pascal as, I would say, an edge, but 4 guys. Like, in the position group that you like struggled, the second, it was corners and edges last year. That was your issue. The whole team, 1 and 2. And you had 4 guys. There was really no upgrade. It was just like, well, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it is a concern. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't. I just would. And I still think that come trade deadline, Brad's going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, so maybe someone on a contract here.
I really hope.
Let me just, hey, come on over and help us. Or maybe Davenport stays healthy. He's a monster. All right, there's like what did you say? What did Booner say 2 days ago? A machine. Maybe a machine.
He's a machine. I had that last year going. I'm a machine because of who was the boxer's dad.
Oh, Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury's dad. And I don't know if people know, like, when I was on air, like doing I'm a machine, every single time I did it, I was like, I think I'm gonna pass out. Like, I would just get so lightheaded. But it was it was a great bit. Great bit.
I hope he can stay healthy. But yeah, Ook was on the practice squad. You mentioned it, Kyle Pecco, CJ Moore.
Can I just make a quick prediction?
Yep, go ahead.
Isaac Ukwu. Remember how James Houston came back on the practice squad, got re-signed, and ended up coming in later in the season and having 8 sacks in 9 games or whatever it was? I think this year you might see, I'm not saying 8 sacks from Isaac Ukwu, but I think you're going to see a handful of sacks from Isaac Ukwu at some point this year. I think there's going to be an injury on this edge group, and the first guy up is going to be Isaac Ukwu, and you're going to see a 2022 James Houston as type of situation. I'm not saying 8 sacks in 9 games, but I'm saying he's going to come in, and you're going to be like, is that Isaac? We're going to be sitting there versus like the Cowboys or something later in the year, and you're going to be like, all right, Isaac Ukwu was active for this game. Here we go, boys. And then you're just going to be sitting there during the game, and there's going to be a sack that tags like Dak Prescott to the ground. And like, what is it called? Like Gator rolls him. And then it's just going to be like, who is that? That's 45. That's Isaac Ukwu. Let's go, boys. Out there. Hey, I think Isaac Ukwu will have a couple sacks this year. I think he's going to get brought up.
That's your stand, Boone. That's your stand. I like the bold prediction. I like the passion behind it. However,
people would have thought I was crazy if I said that about James Houston.
Very true. Very fine point, Boone. Very fine point. And that's why I when you say couple, Do you mean like 1 or 2, or do you mean like 4 or 5? That's where I
No,
need
not
to
4 or
get the
5, like 2 or
clarity.
3,
Yeah.
like 2 or 3. Like I just think what's going to happen is there's going to be a stretch of games where like Davenport's out or Houston is out, and you're gonna like I just think that's like inevitable. Like we know those,
Okay.
like we know that
I don't hate it.
3 or
I
4
really
games.
don't hate it because it's going to be one-on-one situation for me. Ain't nobody double teaming Isaac Ukwu, and you got DJ Reader, Aiden Hutchinson, and Lee McNeil.
Hey,
Hey,
he's
Booner-
right by, dude.
Booner's got a
remember
man
this.
crush on Isaac Ukwu.
Look at
Yeah,
shout out
he just
Slappy 313. He said Booner drank too much Kool-Aid tonight. Don't forget who I am. I am some people forget. Sometimes I do have some harsh takes. I am the Kool-Aid guy, and I am the Booner Path guy, and I want the Detroit Lions to go win a Super Bowl. Maybe I am a Slappy at times.
Hey, and another underrated storyline that I think can come out of this is I think the fact that they did keep 4 edge rushers, they're very confident in Derek Barnes off the edge this year. I think if he wouldn't have been if he would have been very inconsistent, they probably would have kept more. But I think they've been trying to make sure that Derek Barnes is, with Calvin Shepard turning into the best version of Derek Barnes. He's been inconsistent, but I think even later down the stretch, Boone brings it up all the time. Outside of that missed safety that he had on Dak Prescott, which I was irate for weeks, I'm still mad about that. Derek Barnes took a very big step forward last year, and I think with them bringing in Jack Campbell last season, and we're all expecting the emergence of Jack Campbell. Derek Barnes is not just going to be a guy to be like, oh, forget about me. Like, who am I? Like, Derek Barnes is a guy that has faced a lot of noise. He wants to get that bag in Detroit, and if he doesn't get in Detroit, he wants to sign somewhere else for a lot of money. And I think he is a player that Derek Barnes can cover and pass pro and everything like that. That's not anything where he's going to be a liability, but he can definitely develop more. But if he's able to get at the passer situationally, I think that's why there's only four defensive ends right now.
I mean, do you guys think, and I want to bring this comment up because I do think it's in Spencer, shout out to him. Unpopular opinion, Houston needs to shit or get off the pot.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Like if James Houston goes out there and does absolutely nothing again this year, even if he gets injured, like James Houston cannot afford to have another season-ending injury because it's the NFL.
No.
Time to move on. Lions are going to have first, second, third, and fourth round draft picks. If he doesn't show up, Marcus Davenport's only here on a 1-year, $6 million deal. I don't see him staying in Detroit long term. They're going to figure out that problem. If James Houston, he's not that problem that he was in year one as far as for the offenses. Love you, James, but it's time to go because they're moving you back to defensive end where you want to be playing. There's no excuses this year. You put up 8 sacks in 9 games. In 17 games, I can hope you can put up at least 6.
Yeah, there's a feeling I get that the Houston and Davenport, them two, it could either go very, very well or terrible. I don't see I don't really see like a middle ground. Even if there is a middle point, I still think you have to upgrade. But I can see a scenario, not that I hope it happens, that Houston he is not what you thought he was his rookie year, and then Davenport gets injured, and you're sitting there week 5, and you're like, we got to go get an edge. I mean, that could happen. Now, you mentioned like the possibility of Pascal playing edge. I get it. He's pretty versatile. I wouldn't be in love with that. I just wouldn't. He's fun. I think Pascal is someone that you can come in a rotation, but if he's out there starting for you, he just hasn't shown that. I'm confident in that happen. I'm not confident if you were.
I do agree. I do agree with Klotz though. Like I do think they're going to get into some packages, especially to where if you are lower on edges, like remember, actually we saw it at training camp where they had Levi at the edge and they had Derek Barnes at the Sam kind of coming off the edge right next to Levi, to where they're like, hey, we're going to have to figure out packages because obviously, and I think AG knows this, like obviously one thing he was good at last year when it came down towards the stretch in the secondary was figuring out ways like, hey, we need to get to the quarterback because our secondary is not good. I think he's going to find ways, is what we saw last year, to still get to the quarterback even if you don't have the deep edge room that you need. Like I think he's going to find ways to do it. Like last year he did it all the time with Iffy. He found ways to do it with Jack Campbell. Like he was constantly getting different guys rushing the quarterback to put pressure on the quarterback. I think he'll find a way to do it, especially if you have an upgraded secondary too. I think it'll make it a lot easier. I do have thoughts on James Houston, and I'll give it later in the show because we have a segment later in the show, and James Houston's my guy for that.
Let me ask you guys. So now that cuts are official, the roster's together, the practice squad's together, you know what they have at this point. We know. I'll ask, and we kind of talked about it. Maybe the answer is similar to what we kind of just talked about, and that's fair. You don't have to dive too much into it. But what's a position group you worry the most about in a position group you're the most confident with? Two things. Strongest, you think, unit, and the weakest unit.
To me, easily offensive tackle is what I struggle with the most, because I understand you have Penei Sewell, arguably one of the best players in the NFL, not even linemen, just players, period, and Taylor Decker. And both of those guys, for the most part, have been Iron Man. But you look behind them, Giovanni Manu, developmental product, but he's looking better than who you expect to be starting if one of those guys go down, and Colby Sorsdahl and Dan Skipper. So if one of those guys go down, Jared Goff relies so much on the protection he gets from his offensive line. He's not a quarterback that can get a lot of pressure in his face. You've seen it. When Jared Goff gets pressure, he's a completely different quarterback. That's the case for most quarterbacks, but Jared Goff, unfortunately, just lacks the ability to extend plays with mobility. So I think when I look at the offensive tackle position, outside of Penei, obviously, but the depth there, that definitely concerns me. The strongest by far, and I don't even think it's close, is the running back room. I mean, they're 4 deep at running back, guys that could all play meaningful time. Jahmyr Gibbs, we'll get into him later. He's definitely going to be, talent-wise, a top 5 running back in the NFL. David Montgomery's going to rush for 10-plus touchdowns. Sion Vaki, we all saw what he can do, and Craig Reynolds is a guy that can just do it all. So the running back room is where I'm just the most confident in, especially behind the offensive line.
The weakest position group to you is offensive tackle?
As far as if we're going depth-wise, yeah, if you're going to go with talent, but I'm thinking of like depth, like even the wide receiver depth, defensive line depth. I like the defensive edge depth more than I like the offensive tackle depth. Like you have Aiden Hutchinson, you have not DJ Reader, you have Marcus Davenport. Then you got James Houston. You're a little confident in that. Like, okay, Josh Pascal, but do you have any confidence in Colby, Dan Skipper, or Giovanni Manu?
No, not a %.
No, I mean, but I do think like Penei is the best player on your football team.
Absolutely, but
Taylor Decker is like Taylor Decker's top 15 at his position. So like if you're looking like the edge group, like I had the edge group as my weakest unit, and that's just because from top to bottom, like you have Aiden Hutchinson, and then you really don't have anyone. Like
that's
you could say Mark
too. Penei.
It's a tackle, but you have Penei and Taylor Decker. And then you at least have that. And like to me, like Aiden Hutchinson, I think can win Defensive Player of the Year this year. But then I think like your second guy, at least in the offensive line, you have Taylor Decker. Like you have another guy there. And then like you can move guys around if you need to. Like the offensive line unit as a whole is the best in the entire NFL. So that's why it's like for me, I can't put the offensive line. I don't even with.
I'm saying tackle specific though, just tackle.
Oh, well, even then though, like you have the number 1 offensive lineman in the entire NFL in that room.
Yeah,
and you have a top 15 tackle in that room as well. So like for me, like Hutch is the top 6 in his position, but then after that, you don't have a top 15 edge rusher next to Hutch like you do with Taylor Decker. Like you have Marcus Davenport, who has been struggling to stay healthy for years, and then you have James Houston, who's coming off a major injury. And like that's isn't to me being like going at them, but like, if I was to pick out heading out of camp going into the season, the weakest position group, I think 1-1. Like the obvious one, it has to be defensive edge. Like, and to the point too that we just talked about, Jeff, like you mentioned, like that's like if you had to go trade for someone now, it has to be an edge because that group right now is like probably the biggest question mark on it. Like outside of Aiden Hutchinson and like the wide receiver, I almost put wide receiver. But if you just look at it, like you have Amon-Ra, who's a first-team All-Pro. You have J-Mo, who could be a Pro Bowler this year if he goes out there and does what people think he's going to do. You have Khalif Raymond, who puts up 5+ 100 yards a season. Like, and the depth is there. It's just more so for me. It's like after Hutch, I went through every single position group in my mind, and after like at the top of each group, they have guys behind them. At least one guy that's like, yep, we can trust him. This one is like the edge. You cannot. And I want to just second what Klotz said with the running back room, because that was, I think it's easy to say like the safety room. I mean, I guess I can go to the safety room. I think with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Iffy, Brandon Joseph, and Lawrence Strickland, I think that could be potentially. And what's crazy to think that the secondary was so bad last year, and then this year you have probably that's your deepest thing, deepest group is your safety because you moved Brian Branch there. But I think running back is number 1, just because you have Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sione Vaki, Craig Reynolds, very underrated as well. Jamar Jefferson's back on the practice squad. From 1 to 5, I said it during training camp. When we were at training camp watching, I put it out. Just this is the best running back crew in the entire NFL. And there's no running back room in the NFL that's touching this one. 0. And then I think the safety room at this point, you can almost put up with anyone in the NFL too, especially with Brian Branch and Kirby.
So which one is it? Because you just took mine. Is it?
Well, no, mine was running back, but Klotz took it, so I switched to safety. That was it. That's why it's tough. Right. We got 3 of us, and there's I don't want to double down with Klotz and just say the running back. I'm trying to be different here. You taught me that, Jeff. We said, hey, Booner, how can you get better? have backups. My backup was safeties. I'm sorry.
All right.
Did you
Mine,
listen to
mine is safety.
what's your
That is where I'm
backup?
going.
Did you bring a backup?
No, no, I did
Bring
not.
your Nate Sudfeld around.
I think it's safety in my opinion, because your best 3 safeties are better than your best 3 running backs. That's how I look at it. So I mean, and I love Aki, but I think if he's better than as a player, better than Aki right now. I mean, there's not really a debate there. So that's where I'm at. So I think they're both. If you want to go your top 2 strongest positions, I'm not even gonna argue with you. Like it's you 1 or 2, whatever. So you can't really argue at running back in safety, or you're too deep at like 2 best position groups. I actually kind of agree with. I get what you're saying, Boone. Like edge is my weakest position, but I actually had like a split. Like it was edge and then offensive line depth. That was where I was like Klotz said, depth, not necessarily the starters, just the depth. And I think that's what you were kind of alluding to, Klotz, too. Like just in case one of those guys go down, I am worried. Like you could probably string together a unit and be like, all right, Graham plays center, Frank goes down like that. Okay. And then you put Colby or Yodi at guard. And I get it. Offensive line depth is hard to get in the NFL. Every team struggles with it. I say it all the time on this show. It is not something the Lions are the only team that struggles with offensive line depth. But if you're not going to mention them at all, the offensive line depth, not you guys, but in general, you have to. It is something that you look at and you're like, they are the best offensive line. They're just after the starters, you're like, ooh, Colby, I thought would be a lot better this preseason. He didn't really get there to me. So
can I say this?
Not a shock, but the depth is something that I'm like, hope those guys can stay healthy all year. It's going to be big time.
The reason I hate the offensive line answer is just because like when when we do this and we're like, all right, position group, which one's the worst and which one's the best? Like the offensive line, like as a group, and I know you guys said tackles, that's fine, whatever, but I'm just as a group, like I get the depth is tough. The offensive line as a group is the number 1 offensive line out of all 32 teams in the NFL. So how can you not? How do you have them as even if it's one position? Like, how do you have them? Like, I don't care about the depth at this point. We're talking about who is the best group on your team, who is the worst group on your team. The offensive line is literally rated the number 1 offensive line
we're arguing
out of all 32 teams.
We're arguing what are you more concerned about? And why I say offensive line is because when you have a quarterback like Jared Goff, that's what it comes to. It was who are you most concerned about? Who are you most confident in as far as the rooms as a whole? So when you look at the rooms as a whole, yes, it's number 1 offensive line in the league. Jared Goff, I think in order to get this team to a Super Bowl, needs to have a top 1 to 5 offensive line in the league. If something happens to Penesu or Taylor Decker just for one game, this offense looks completely different.
We're answering two different questions here. Then that because I took it as the strongest position group in your team and the weakest in your team. The weakest is far from the offensive line at any position. Even if you don't have
I would agree with you there.
They are the strongest. They are the number 1 in the NFL.
Like if Taylor Decker were to go down, would you be more concerned about that or if Marcus Davenport were to go down? That's where I'm coming from.
Marcus Davenport, to be honest, like Taylor Decker went down last year and you were able to fill it in for a game.
Dude, if you're if you're giving me James Houston or Dan Skipper, I'm more confident, or Josh Pascal. Like you have options there. You really don't have.
I just think as a whole, you have the number 1 offensive line in the entire.
We
NFL.
understand that.
Even if the strongest and weakest position groups.
Arguably,
what are we doing
from edge and interior? The Lions probably have on paper a top 5 to 6 defensive line as well. Like they have one weakness, and you could say that Marcus Davenport weakness absolutely, but something happens.
We're arguing different things. Can we agree with this? This is where we'll rejoice. Offensive line depth, every team struggles with it. Are you confident in who they have behind the starters on the offensive line? I say no. Yes or no answer. We'll all agree or disagree. No. Okay, Lukas, no. Booner, are you confident with who's behind the starters? That's what we're talking about. No.
No, I'm not. But the question was the strongest and the weakest group. And
I understand that. I just want to make sure we agree with that point. That's all we're talking about. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Boone. They are the strongest position group starters. Like we're just talking about. That's what we're just the depth. Weakest, the weakest group, not just with depth. Like, the edge is something we all agree. Like, okay, hopefully they can get one at the deadline. So. I don't know.
It's obvious the line depth is trash. Like we know that. Like we saw it.
That's all we were.
I think that's obvious. To me, it's just more so like when we're like this is it's who's the strongest group and who's the deepest, or not the deepest, the weakest group. And just putting the line in the weakest group is just you guys can see how it might be a little shocking to me, being there the number one offensive line in the entire NFL.
I'm not looking at it as the weakest group. I'm looking
like if we were like who's the weakest, who has the weakest depth, then we can have that conversation.
All right. Let's just cut that off. I don't want to argue bullshit. All right, let's just move on. All right, it's almost what 8:45. I want to ask this question. Wanted to talk about it last week. I think we didn't get to it. Do you guys see the little? I don't know who put it. Some beat writer put it out, but people are writing, and it was I think it was a article in Denver, and they were talking about Tim Patrick leaving, and they said Tim Patrick leaves, signs with a Super Bowl contender. Didn't even write the Lions. Used the Super Bowl contender or Super Bowl roster, whatever it was. The Lions are in this like Super Bowl era. The air smells a little different, It feels different. It feels exciting. I mean, we're a little over a week away from watching Lions football week 1 against the Rams. I want to ask you guys this because we haven't really discussed this specific question. Out of all teams in the NFL, all of the NFL, are the Lions under the most pressure to win a Super Bowl? Are the Lions under the most pressure? And you can think of any team in the NFL. Is the spotlight on the Lions the most to get it done, to win the Super Bowl? Not make it, not get to the NFC Championship game, to win the Super Bowl.
Boone, you already want me to go?
You go ahead, Klotzy.
Fuck no. No, absolutely not. And I'll give you a couple of teams right off the top. In my opinion, the number one team that has to go win a Super Bowl this year without a doubt is the New York Jets. You have built this whole roster. You have sold your soul for Aaron Rodgers. And he says he wants to play 3 or 4. Aaron Rodgers is playing 2 years max, in my opinion, at least at the level that Aaron Rodgers can go win a Super Bowl. So if the New York Jets don't win it, I think they are on the most pressure. Another team that I think in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. How many times are the Baltimore Ravens going to be viewed as regular season heroes? And you're like, this is the Ravens' year. They have Derrick Henry now. I think the fact that you bring in Derrick Henry with that defense, Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. I love Lamar as a quarterback, but in the playoffs, he's just a different person. I think when you look at Lamar in the playoffs, if he can even pull, and I wouldn't even blame last postseason, especially the game where they lost, solely on Lamar. You can't do that if you look at the coaching. But the Baltimore Ravens are consistently a Super Bowl roster. They definitely need to go get one soon because it's only a matter of time. Like, you can't keep being this good and not getting that point and thinking that you still can. Derrick Henry going there, I think, transforms their offense. They're always solid on defense. Another team in the NFC that I think has the most pressure is, without a doubt, the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to find a way to keep Brandon Ayuk, but if they can't win a Super Bowl this year, it's over. They can still be a good team, but their Super Bowl window, I just think it's closed. I just don't find a way where the San Francisco 49ers don't make it to the Super Bowl again this year, don't win it, and you can keep taking them seriously as contenders. They have the roster to do it, but taking them serious as actual Super Bowl contenders to win, I don't think so. And then finally, before the Lions, I think you got to put the Chiefs. Just because they're the Super Bowl champions, I think pressure comes with that. But they're also now looking at all the offseason things that are going on there. You're talking about, okay, when they come back, you won the Super Bowl last year. Your offense is now legitimate. Patrick Mahomes could be on track to have his best season of his career. Travis Kelce just got repaid. So I think when you look at the Chiefs, they got a lot of pressure to three-peat, and they're without a doubt right now the best roster in football. So that's why I'm not putting them at 1, because at some point, like, they're the Chiefs. They're like, they're going to be good. There's no questioning the Chiefs. I think the teams ahead of them, you can truly question. So in my opinion, you got the Jets, you got the Ravens, 49ers, Chiefs, and then the Lions. But the Lions, I just think because there's so much legitimate hype that they have never had, that's why the pressure is there. They were up 17 in the NFC Championship game. The pressure, in my opinion, is just coming from media being like, are they legit or are they not legit? The Lions are legit, and they're going to go out and improve it for years to come. I think if you were to say the same thing about the 49ers 4 or 5 years ago, it'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, this team's going to be around for a while. But I think the Lions, just with the culture that they have, the way that they've been playing football, the physicality, the depth that they have, they're not under the most pressure.
Juicy J, do you want to go next?
Yeah, you know what? When I wrote this question down and I was thinking more about it, I think you look at the Lions and they do have pressure. All right, and we talked about it a lot. They have a lot of pressure on the Lions. The Lions do, to go out and win a Super Bowl. Everyone expects it, at least to make it. And we know this is one of the best. We see those graphics, one of the best rosters in the NFL. Lions, most bet on team to win the Super Bowl. All this stuff. but I wouldn't say they're under the most pressure. I actually have a couple teams. You named them. I'll give a couple examples here, and this is where I'm basing my argument off of window. I think the Lions' window is just opening. It's not going to be open forever, but teams that have a smaller window, pressures on them more than the Lions. For example, Chiefs. With Mahomes, the window's always going to be open. But in terms of them three-peating, I think they have a lot of pressure this year to see if they could three-peat. I think that's just pressure within itself. Wouldn't say the most. I think the 49ers and the Jets, to your point, Klotz, have more pressure because of the window. The 49ers after this year, by the way, they can't pay Ayuk. They can't pay Trent Williams. They're trying to. But next year, they're going to be so over the cap, they're going to have to kind of make moves, cut guys, draft guys, get younger. Like they have to make some moves that again can set them up for the future. So they're getting to that. Their window's kind of closing, not completely, but they're going to have to kind of reset a little bit, retool, if you want to use that word. So the 49ers have to win one like now, right now, or else they're going to be in some trouble when that bill is due for Brock Purdy. So I think the 49ers have more pressure, and I think the Jets, to your point, Klotz, have more pressure because the window, Aaron Rodgers, 40 years old, they probably got a good year of Aaron Rodgers left. And then you're back in quarterback purgatory. So I think the Jets and 49ers have the most pressure. And then I think it's like Chiefs just a little under because with Mahomes, like they're always going to be in it. I don't think they have pressure just this season, just for the three-peat. And I think the Lions are kind of on a similar level. And maybe even throw the Eagles just because the Eagles with Nick Sirianni, that storyline. And also they just made the Super Bowl. Can they get back? They still have a really good roster. They just signed Saquon, spent a bunch of money. I think you could put the Eagles up there. So in the NFC, they're in the top three, but they're not one. The 49ers are in their own conference. That's where I'm at least.
It's interesting, boys. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to start it off by just letting I led the Booner path and continue to lead the Booner path to go win a Super Bowl this season. It's going to happen. Said last year they're going to NFC Championship game. It happened. Booner path this year goes to the Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions will win a Super Bowl this year. But I will agree with you guys on this point. The 49ers and the Jets probably have the most pressure out of any team. The 49ers have been in this Super Bowl period or window for 5 years, and they have not figured it out. I said a couple weeks ago, they're what was it? 2018 to 2024. Put it on an RIP graphic. They are dead. Their Super Bowl window's over. They can't figure out the Ayuk stuff. They can't figure out the Trent Williams stuff. I think after losing the Super Bowl last year, I'm not going to say, obviously, in a building like that, you still think you can go win a Super Bowl, but I think the pressure relieves a little bit when you sit there and, hey, we've been trying this for 5 years, guys. Like, Ayuk's leaving, Trent Williams potentially. We can't figure this out. Like, what are we doing here? But the Jets, obviously, they bring in Aaron Rodgers, yes, get that. I do think, though, the Lions, like, I don't think the Chiefs just won back-to-back Super Bowls. They have been there. They have done that. They know what it takes. Those guys, they've won 3 of the last 5 years. They know exactly what it takes. I think there is a relief of them to take the pressure off. Like, I know they want to win a three-peat, but the pressure on them, I don't think they have anything to prove. They don't have to go out there and prove they're the Kansas City Chiefs at this point. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, they're all at the point of their career that we all know they're all first ballot Hall of Famers. They've won 3 or 4 Super Bowls. They've done it. They've been there. They don't have the pressure of being like, oh, we need to win back to back, the first team. Like, they're like, yeah, we want to do that. That's our goal. But the pressure is off on them. Realistically, guys, like the Lions, and this is where I'm kind of shocked from you guys because I'm the slappy, but I'm going to say this too, and I'm going to end it, I think, on a very, very high note that the people are going to love. You're going to love what I have to say here. First of all, the Detroit Lions, this is the highest expectations that have ever been in Detroit, in Detroit Lions organization history, ever. You've never had a Super Bowl expectation, maybe in the 90s with Barry Sanders, but like in our lifetime, at least my lifetime, this is the highest it's ever been. You're coming off a 17-point lead that you blew in the NFC Championship game where Dan Campbell after the game goes, hey, I don't know if we're going to be back here next year. And Jeff, what did you tell me all the time? The expectation this year is to get back to the Super Bowl. If the Detroit Lions fall short after being, in my opinion, they are now America's football team. No one cares about the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys is like the gum on the bottom of my shoe. No one cares about the Dallas Cowboys. The whole world, every single country that watches the NFL and is like, who do I want to cheer for? Every single fan, NFL fan that doesn't have a team to root for in America is rooting for the Detroit Lions. You have all of that pressure on you right now. And I think as humans, realistically, as much as fans in here in Detroit that we want to say, hey, you don't have that much. There is pressure. There is no other team in the NFL that is getting the cameras that the Detroit Lions are getting right now. There is no other team in the NFL that is going to get as many primetime games as the Detroit Lions will get this year. They are officially America's team. And at this point, and I think everyone will agree with me. It's Super Bowl or bust this year. Your expectation is going to Super Bowl. Now, having that pressure, the one thing that we all have on our side, fellas, is a man by the name of Dan Campbell. And I think Dan Campbell knows how to bring all of that in and turn it into something positive to go out there and play some football and win football games. And he knows how to handle it and knows how to do it. But do I think they have some of the most pressure in the NFL? Yes, they're up there with the Jets and the 49ers because they know that the expectation this year is a Super Bowl. They know they have an entire fan base, the country of America, the whole world sitting behind them going, we want the Lions to be successful. We've never seen this before in Detroit. I love it. I embrace it. The fans should embrace it. You guys should embrace it. The people in the chat should embrace it. And Dan Campbell and the players should embrace it. Like, put the pressure on us. Let's go win a Super Bowl with the most pressure that people have ever seen. That's where I'm at with this. I think it's obvious that the Lions have some of the most pressure in the entire NFL. And I don't think that can be an argument. So can they handle it? 100%. I trust Dan Campbell under pressure over anyone in the NFL. Anyone. I'll take Dan Campbell leading my group and my pack over anyone with the amount of pressure that's on Detroit heading into this season. But they are up there just with the Jets and 49ers when it comes to the publicity and everything that's getting behind them right now.
So I do think in the Lions, the thing I struggle with the Lions is they just won the NFC North. They just made the NFC Championship for the first time in how long? So with pressure, I think you need more of a sample size. Like your argument with there's pressure. I'm not saying there isn't, but like with the 49ers to make the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship as many times as they have, and they have yet to win and capitalize like that. If the Lions make, let's say, the Super Bowl this year and lose, and then the next year they make the NFC Championship game and lose, I think you're looking at it like, what is going on? Like, you got to win. You got to get one of these things. You know, I think right now it's a little too early to be like most pressure in the NFL. I do think they are the most hyped team in the NFL, most hyped up team in the NFL, like because of the Lions and the storyline there. But maybe that comes with a lot more pressure. I would agree with that. But the most, I don't know. I wouldn't say that.
I mean, last year they didn't have Super Bowl expectations. They had NFC North expectations. Like, Jeff, like the pressure you were putting on them last year to go win one playoff game. Like, you were like, they have to win one or there's something going on. Now this year, that's not just a playoff game that's Super Bowl. Like, you have to go win the Super Bowl or we're going to have to figure out what's going on the next offseason and bring not new guys, but, we have to figure out this roster again. And I think like people know that, like, whether you've been there 4 or 5 years or not, you had a 17-point lead to go to a Super Bowl and you lost it. And you sat there and you're like, oh my gosh, like the whole family, we were in Ford Field with that, like up 17 points. And I'm sitting there at Ford Field, like, we're about to go to the Super Bowl. Like, I was at the highest of highs of my entire life about to go to a Super Bowl with the Detroit Lions. And then it just gets ripped out from under you. And you're like, you have to get back there next year. You have to. And if you don't get back to the NFC Championship game and you fall short, everything is a failure. Like, that's a lot of pressure. That's like that. You're not cutting that short anymore. Like, if the 49ers get to the NFC Championship game and lose, you're sitting there going like, all right, you're at this point, you're like, all right, same old 49ers, 6 year in the row. They can't figure it out, whatever. Like, and obviously they're fans, but we're talking about a whole country. We're talking about national media putting you on the front screen of everything. The Lions, like, they were just on the cover of Sports Illustrated getting picked to win the Super Bowl. If that's not pressure, like, I don't know what is. Like, you are literally America's team where people are like, this is the Lions' year. You have never seen this in your life that, hey, the Lions are getting picked to win the Super Bowl by everyone around the nation. Like, that. This is like, here we go. Like, it's either you win. Like, if they fall short, Dan Campbell's going to get a lot at him. Like, if you lose in the first round, there's going to be a problem. Like, that's bad.
Well, we talked the Lions no longer flying under the radar. There was a quarterback that plays for the Lions that just keeps flying under the radar. And you see the ESPN thing they did where they interviewed 103 NFL players and they asked them who is the most overrated quarterback and who's the most underrated quarterback. And they did a list for each overrated and underrated. Well, I want to show the overrated list first because I don't know if Booner saw this. I don't know his current mental state. I just want to make sure he's okay. because Josh Allen was voted the most overrated quarterback in the league by players.
Over Tua
103
is
NFL players.
crazy. Over Tua is
crazy.
insane. Over Trevor Lawrence. Deshaun Watson should be number one. And it shouldn't even be close at this point. Like, I know people.
I agree.
If people still have hope in Deshaun Watson, you have lost your mind. You have lost your mind. He's had like one game where I was like, oh, Deshaun Watson could be back. And it was early this year. I don't recall who they were playing. It might have been the Steelers. Could be wrong. Maybe the Bengals, an AFC North game. But the Browns made a comeback. And after that, Deshaun Watson fell apart. Most money guaranteed in NFL history. And he's a bottom 15 quarterback in the NFL. Josh, look, I'm a Burrow over Josh Allen guy, but there is an argument to be made that Josh Allen is better than Joe Burrow. So for him to be number one is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The man's hardly ever had a run game. The closest thing he had to a run game was James Cook last year when they made Brady the offensive coordinator. So Josh Allen, I don't think, like I said, I don't think the Bills are going to be the Bills this year, but Josh Allen's going to have a huge year.
He's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, like undoubtedly. Yeah. The fact that he's on this to me, and you know what's crazy too, is I'm pretty sure Josh Allen was rated the number 1 player, number for trash talk as well. So for me, all this shows is just that there's a lot of people in the NFL that people don't like him, and they don't like him because he's so good. And it's just like, all right, like you just don't have the respect for him yet because maybe he hasn't won an MVP or maybe he hasn't been to a Super Bowl. So like there are respect. But like if we're just talking about football, the fact he's even on this list, he shouldn't even be on this list. And the fact that he's number 1 is absolutely disrespectful. Like I think guys should be above him.
I mean, Jalen Hurts on here is kind of he's second. I think that Tua on this list, the most overrated. And I think Trevor Lawrence,
I didn't even
because of the propaganda I put out there, potentially could be a little overrated at this point. I get that. Still think he's going to have a really good season, and maybe I'm holding on. But so I get him being on this list. Herbert, I don't think is overrated. I think he's a quarterback that hasn't had the right support system, and I think now with Jim Harbaugh will help. So I don't know about that one. Deshaun Watson should be definitely higher. Kyler Murray, I get. Brock Purdy, absolutely, I understand. Now Jalen Hurts, no. So I don't know. And Easy put this in. Did they do the AFC East? Is this just that division? I mean, I honestly they're Josh Allen and Tua are high out there.
I'm shocked Dak Prescott or someone's not on there either.
Yeah, Dak's not on here. He is not on here.
I just can't believe Justin Herbert's on there either. That's just
now.
I would say that Herbert at this point is becoming underrated.
I honestly,
yeah.
It was weird. Brock's on this list, and Brock is also on the underrated list.
So that's unbelievable. Then how is he on both lists?
It
can't be on both lists.
People are back and forth about where is he? Underrated, overrated? It's like, oh, this guy's in a great situation, but he still plays very well.
Justin Herbert.
I think Brock is. I mean, I get why people would be all over the place with Brock. I don't think he's like underrated. I mean, the dude was in the MVP conversation last year, given how the race looks. So I think at this point, it just depends what day it is. Sometimes Brock is a little overrated, and then sometimes the slander gets a little too much to where he is a little under. It's weird with Brock. It's a weird storyline. I still think he benefits greatly from a situation. Like I'm never going to shy away from that. Matthew Stafford, I still think's pretty underrated. I think after winning a Super Bowl, though, more people are aware of what Matthew is. So I don't know about now. I guess people still feel he's underrated. Okay. And then they have Kirk Cousins on here. I mean, no, Kirk Cousins is rightfully rated. He's just really good, puts up great numbers. And that's about it.
Yeah, literally. Makes a lot of money doing it.
The fact that Justin Herbert and Brock Purdy are on both lists is crazy.
And then Justin Herbert, I think Justin Herbert should be on this list more so than overrated. But
for sure.
Regardless, Jared Goff is on this list. He was tied for second with Kirk Cousins. So Jared Goff was not on the overrated list, but he was on the underrated list. They have Bryce Young. I don't know how they let anybody get away with that. I like Bryce coming out.
I like this one. Shit on it all you want. I think Bryce Young has been a guy that's had so much negative publicity, and he has been in the worst position of any quarterback in the NFL over the last season. Bryce Young, They finally got some weapons. He's a guy that started with Nick Saban and put up numbers, was a Heisman candidate, was winning national championships. The only thing to not like about Bryce Young, in my opinion, is his size, and that relates to injury. I don't think there's any arm talent to not like about Bryce Young. You like the mobility. Again, the only thing you don't like is the size. Bryce Young this year, he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying that, but people act like this man is the equivalent to Jacoby Brissett or something after year one. Like, you can just write this man off. Like, no, Bryce Young was the number one pick for a reason. He's not CJ Stroud. He's not going to live up to that. But Bryce Young is a very talented quarterback with an offensive-friendly head coach, has a couple weapons around him this year. He's going to bounce back in a big way compared to last season.
Bryce, listen, I'm just going to say this with Bryce Young. It's just one of those situations in the NFL. It's like, I just have to see it to believe it. Like, that's all it is. Like, there's nothing to me. I get it. Just last year was so bad. Like, yeah, he wasn't a bad spot, and he is getting a couple more weapons this year. I just something about the situation he's in. I just don't see him ever being like, oh my gosh, Bryce Young, Pro Bowl, or anything like that. Like, I just cannot. I can't wrap my head around it. I can't. There's so many good quarterbacks in the NFL. For me to think that Bryce Young's about to just take a jump to be one of them right now, once I see it, then I would be gladly. That's one that I'd be like, hand up. That's me. I was wrong.
That boy Deontay Johnson's going to help him out a lot.
Well, and a new head coach, offensive-minded head coach. If he can't work with him, I don't know. And they put a lot of money in the offensive line, so I guess you'll find out this year about it. Lamar Jackson, they put him on underrated. Dak Prescott's on this list. Tua and Jalen are also in the underrated. They must have like a split, half set overrated, half set underrated.
Crazy.
I don't know.
CTE was kicking in when they were making this list.
Really? How did they come up with that?
I don't know how that makes any sense. But I guess Jared Goff being so high on this list, I do think more people over time, especially in Detroit, seeing how the Lions in the playoffs and Goff and putting up these numbers. I do think Goff sometimes is underrated. I think people kind of overlook. I think he's just a guy that doesn't wow you. So I think people kind of like fall off. Like, you have all these guys that are in the top 5 and top 6 that, Josh Allen's of the world and Patrick Mahomes, and Goff's not like that. He's not mobile. He doesn't make these sexy plays, but he dude's accurate, wins you games. I talked about it yesterday with Doc. I think there's about 25 teams that would probably take off right now over their current quarterback. So that's still how I feel about it. But it's interesting to see the rise. I think Goff in LA, people would have put him on the overrated list. Now he's an underrated guy. So it tells you situation, coaching, all this stuff matters. And he's in, I think, one of the best situations in football, no doubt, offensively.
Yeah, I'll go. Cause I mean, this is all I have to say. Like, the Jared Goff stuff, and I'm just going to be completely honest with it. As the kind of off season's gone on, and you guys, like, we've been enthralled, and like everyone's been like, that's been the conversation in Detroit for the last year. Is like Jared Goff, and then his contract comes up. He obviously last season it was like, hey, is Jared Goff going to get in contract discussions with the Lions at last season? And they're like, no, they're going to put him off to the season or the end of the season. And he goes out there, takes you to the NFC Championship game, and then throughout the offseason, and this is where it comes. This is where like it kind of bothers me a little bit. There are people throughout the offseason that consistently are like, oh, they're not going to re-sign Jared Goff. Wait for the year. They're not going to re-sign him. Acting like Jared Goff's just a throw it away quarterback. This is where it is with Jared Goff over the last 12 months. And I think a lot of people will agree with me. Jared Goff is probably, Jared Goff is the most underrated quarterback in the entire NFL right now. Like, the most. And it's not just like, oh, he's not mobile. No. Since he's been on the Lions, yes, you could say with Ben Johnson in the offense, he needs it around him. All right, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that get ranked in the top 10 that have a lot of pieces. They have a good OC. They have a good head coach. They have everything that's good around them, and that's why they're in the top 10. That doesn't matter. Like, if you have that, you should still be rated where you're respectfully supposed to be. This guy, since 2021, guys, he is 4th in passing yards in the entire NFL. He is 7th in passing touchdowns. And then if you guys want to say, oh, well, his turnovers, he's 23rd in the NFL in interception percentage since 2021 being on the Detroit Lions. Since 2022, he's 4th in quarterback wins. He's taken his team to the NFC Championship game. He's gone out there and he's done everything. And it's like people just keep moving the goalposts for this guy. Year 1, it was, he can't do anything. Year 2, you're going there. He starts off the season slow. Oh, it's his turnovers. It's this, it's that. He goes on one of the most biggest NFL streaks of all time, throwing attempts and completions without throwing an interception. And everyone's like, oh, wow, look at this guy. He can actually play football. And then he gets into a little slump last year for a 3-game slump. And then everyone's like, throw him away. He's not coming back next year. Or bring in Hendon Hooker. You can go out there, don't re-sign this kid. Like, what are we doing? And then he takes to the NFC Championship game, and then he's the hero in Detroit, and everyone loves him. Like, the roller coaster of emotions and what people go through with Jared Goff. And then after they go to the NFC Championship game, you have the side of the people who are like, don't extend the kid. Don't extend Jared Goff. After he just did what he did for you, had top 5 numbers across the board in the entire NFL, and you can extend him not for elite numbers, but just for normal quarterback numbers, and you can have him for the next few years. Like, it's unbelievable to me that some people still hate Jared Goff and they sit there and say, "Oh, well, you can't win because of him. You can only win with him." Well, yeah, welcome to the NFL. There's only about 3 quarterbacks you can win because of, and if you're going to sit there and chase 3 quarterbacks out of 32 teams for the rest of your life, you have a pretty low % of chance to hit on it. So take the guy and go win with Jared Goff and quit complaining about it. The kid, he's literally the most underrated quarterback in the NFL, guys. And I think it's like, to his standards, I think that's fair to say, honestly. Like people put him and say he's as bad as he's a Baker Mayfield or he's a Derek. Shut up and move on. He's not 15th in the NFL. This guy's a top 10 quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback without being mobile. Like, put that in perspective a little bit. Yeah, he has Ben Johnson, he has pieces, but he's able to put top 10 numbers up consistently and win you football games. It's crazy. I cannot wrap my head around it.
Hey, I just put a poll up, and the question is very simple. Where does Goff rank in the NFL? I want to get a feel for the chat. I want to see kind of where he's rated amongst the chat before we because you just mentioned it, top 10 quarterback. I asked the chat, where does Goff rank in the NFL? Top 10 or top 5? 80% at this point say top 10. 20% say top 5. So for the most part, he is properly rated. Because you see sometimes, maybe some national outlets throw out some clickbait where Goff is like, behind some quarterback he doesn't need to be behind, whatever it is. Like Kirk Cousins is ahead of him. I see these things. But I think for the most part, people in Detroit, there might be some that believe he's better. He's the best quarterback in the league or whatever it is. But top 10, I think, is fine.
I just think it's consistent. I think top 10 is fine. I just think there's consistently the group of people, whether it's in Detroit or it's nationally, who think that, if the Lions just move on from Jared Goff, they're going to be like, guys, no, Jared Goff has won you a lot of football games. Like, yeah, there's been a stretch where maybe he's had a couple fumbles, like last year, the 3-game versus the Bears, the Pack, where he had some interceptions and fumbles and you lose some. That's the deal of having a quarterback. Like, Brock Purdy's lost some games. Patrick Mahomes has lost some games. Joe Burrow has lost some games. Like, at some point, you have to move on and say, hey, Jared Goff's actually a good quarterback in this league. He's in his prime. He's playing really good football, and he just took you to an NFC Championship game. Like, what really gets me is the people who were like, don't extend him after this season. And they were like, hey, let's move on and let's just let him play out his final year. Like, what are we doing there? And Easy's the prime, one of the prime guys of it. This guy, like Jared Goff can win a Super Bowl MVP, as regular season MVP, and he will go into his book, his Bible, and be like, all right, how can I get at Jared Goff this time? And it's just like, dude, like, that's where it's like he's the most underrated guy, because people just are constantly trying to find a way to keep him out of being a great quarterback. And that's where, to me, when I look at underrated, that's it.
So if I ask you boom or doom, you give him a boom.
I'm giving that man 5 booms. Boom, 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 boom.
There you go, bro. There you go.
Oh, dude, that is wild.
I just hate it. I've had enough of the Jared, and I know, like, I'm not a Jared Goff gobbler, as some people are. I'm not. I'm very realistic. I've been realistic with Easy. I've been realistic with people. There's just a point. Klotz, you probably I don't know where you guys are at with this. There's just a point to where it's like, let's just give the guy credit. He just signed an extension. Let's move on and let him go win a Super Bowl here in Detroit. Like, give the kid some credit.
Yeah, I mean, if you think Jared Goff's a top 5 quarterback, you're smoking the rock from the 80s, in my opinion. There's no way that you can look at the other quarterbacks around the NFL The elite ones, the ones that we talk about, the Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, there's 5. There's just 5. He's not on the same level as those guys. I'm sorry. Talking top 10? Okay, now I'm hearing you. I think people could say what they want about the system that he's in, but to Booner's point, how long until you're just like, you know what? He's doing his job at an elite level with production. He doesn't have that elite talent, but he's able to overcome that and put you in a situation where you're winning 12, 13 games now. And I think at least for the next 4 years while Jared Goff is here, you're going to be in a situation where you can win anywhere between 11 to 14 games as a team. So there has to be some value in that. And just the way that Jared Goff, because he's a game manager, but he's probably one of the better game managers in the league. He's probably a top 4 to 5 game manager. He doesn't have that athletic ability, but there are not guys around the NFL who can just pick apart defenses like Jared Goff does. When Jared Goff gets in a rhythm, it's hard to stop this Lions offense. And when you even add on the fact that they have that run game to go off play action, Jared Goff in play action is very accurate. I think this system is built around him, but you couldn't just plug in any other quarterback and be like, all right, produce. I think there's other quarterbacks that could produce in this offense for sure. There's better ones, but to say that Jared Goff is outside of like anywhere top 12 is probably where the farthest I'll go. If you want to put guys like Jalen Hurts, you want to put Dak Prescott, I don't agree, but I can hear where you're coming from. Jared Goff, in my opinion, is without a doubt a top 10 quarterback, and it's hard to dispute at this point. It really is.
And if I ask you guys, like Jared Goff, we understand X factor of the Lions. Like in he's probably the most important. If he goes down, season's over. I mean, it's just how it works in the NFL. Besides Jared, give me the next closest X factor. In I think even on here, David Montgomery being one of those guys. Go on.
Before we go to that, can I just throw this up here before we move on to the segment? Like, this is my exact point of why Jared Goff's the most underrated quarterback in the entire NFL. It's because 50 GMs and head coaches just said the same thing that Easy has been saying and going at Jared Goff and saying that they don't trust him in a 2-minute drive and putting out negative quotes about this guy after he just took the Detroit Lions, a team that has never been there since the 90s, to an NFC championship game, and he has the Detroit Lions with this team as a whole as a Super Bowl contender. But there's 50 GMs and head coaches right now who will go on record, and most of them are like assistant GMs, and they'll go on record, and probably Sean McVay, and say, hey, yeah, the kid just doesn't have it. Like, I don't trust him in a 2-minute drill. I don't trust him when the game on the line. Well, guess who does? Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. And they're probably going to have to trust him, and they will trust him to go win a Super Bowl. And you're going to have to trust him in a Super Bowl to go make those plays. So that's where the underrated, like, he just did that in the playoffs last year. So like this literally easy. Like, you probably were like, oh, I'm cooking 50 GMs and head coaches. You're cooking for me, because this is my point, is that there are so many people out there that still have negative things to say about Jared Goff after he's done what he's done the last 2 seasons in Detroit, where he's top 4 in passing yards, top 5 in passing touchdowns, top 4 in wins total over the last 2 years. His interception percentage is some of the lowest in the NFL. Like, he's done it. He has statistically done it, whether it's because of Ben Johnson and the O-line or not. This guy has gone out there and done it. Like, that's where it's like, all right, you just proved my point. He's the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Thank you for that.
Okay. Okay. Well, there you go. Well, man said Easy's cooking for me. That is how
he was.
Personal
set me up. Threw me. He was on the other team, and he just threw me a lob to the other team on accident after a steal.
I can't. I didn't read. I'm gonna be.
Bo said, "Put a chicken bake in your mouth and pipe
guy
it."
Easy looks more like a. You look more like a Costco guy than me. Lives in the Costco food court.
Booner doing the 5 booms is that's just why. I love that. We got to clip that. I'll ask the question again. X factor besides Goff, go. Who's the biggest X factor? Who must the cog in the engine for the Lions? Who would you say, guys?
Aaron Glenn.
I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
Yeah,
first.
Aaron Glenn. I have full confidence in Aaron Glenn, but what this team needs to take that next step is the defense to take that next step with it. I think if Aaron Glenn does what he's been doing schematically, this team's going to have a ton of success. If he just tries to make the quarterback uncomfortable, there's playmakers all around in the secondary. You bring in a guy like DJ Reader. You get the emergence of Levi Onwuzurike. I know we're concerned about the depth of the defensive line, but you look at the starters of that defensive line we talked about earlier, probably top 5 to 6 group. That linebacking room, it's absolutely solid. And you look at the ceiling that Jack Campbell could potentially reach this year, what Alex Anzalone, I expect him to do this year. You're going to have 2 really good linebackers. You're going to have Derek Barnes behind him. And then Jalen Reeves-Maybin and Malcolm Rodriguez, those are very good depth pieces of the linebacker position. So Aaron Glenn, I think he's really the key that unlocks the Detroit Lions, because are any of us sweating about the offense? Absolutely not. You know that this is going to be a top 5 offense at the floor. What you're worried about is seeing if this defense, which is getting hyped up right now, can put it all together. So AG, to me, I have full confidence that he's going to go out there and put up top 10 to 15 defense this year. I really do. But when you're talking about, okay, if Aaron Glenn doesn't show up, this team's not making the Super Bowl. It's going to be, if they play the LA Rams again, a team like that, a team that can give them issues, that's when you're like, all right, shit, no, the Lions really could lose in the wild card round if they don't get that number 1 seed because the defense is a liability. I don't think that will be the case. But if it is, it's because of Aaron Glenn.
Love that.
I think that's a great answer. Yeah.
What,
I mean,
what is yours, Juicy J?
So for me, I had to think about this one. I think a big X factor on offense, and it's easy because we always talk about it. We talked about this before too, like the pillar players like Hutchinson. You have Amon-Ra, Jared, Panay, like those guys that, those are kind of your marquee players. But there's some really good players, Brian Branch, whoever you want to throw in there. But if we're talking, if this guy were to go down, are you worried? To me, a big X factor, and I love the AG approach. I went Aiden Hutchinson because I think without Aiden, if Aiden were to go down or Aiden doesn't have a big of a season as we expect, there is some cause for concern. Like, because we have such high expectations for him, like defensive player of the year candidate, 15 plus sacks, and you need him to be at his best for this defense to be at their best. If they're not getting a sustainable pass rush, and a lot of that would be with Aiden, then you're in a big predicament. So for me, I would say Aiden Hutchinson, biggest X factor. And if you want to go offense and defense, I'll even say offensively, and I'll say it like I say this a lot when we talk about it. I think besides Jared, to me, Panay Sewell, great one. I don't have much to add there. I think Frank Ragnow is kind of a under the radar X factor because of his importance to Jared, their relationship, what he does. And again, if he were to go down, then you're talking about moving Graham to center, and then you got to fill Graham's spot. So he's kind of the cog in the engine for the offensive line. Not the best player, but I think his importance is sometimes underrated. So if you want to go offense and defense, I'll go there. Frank on offense besides Jared, and then I think defense, I'll go Aiden Hutchinson. Those are the two guys for me.
I love that. So real quick too, I just realized this because people hit the like button for the fellas too, by the way. 300 people in here. Hit the like button. We got 60 likes.
Shout out.
Everyone right now. Let's get like 200 likes in here real quick. I took a different approach with it, fellas, though. I kind of looked at it when I thought like X Factor, and I don't know why I did. I just looked at it like I took all of the stars off my list. Like I was like, we know what they are, and if it's like obviously you need them, and if a guy goes down like Aiden Hutchinson or Amon-Ra or Jared Goff, like you're like, all right, yeah, there are X factors on this team, and there's so many of them. So I like took all those guys off the list, and I was like, who is like a second level guy to where like you need this guy on your football team to produce for you to sustain and keep and continue to win football games. And you could argue that this is the most underrated player on the entire football team, on the entire Detroit Lions. On the offensive side of the ball, no one ever talks about him much, but running back David Montgomery. I think David Montgomery might be the most overlooked player on this Detroit Lions offense because he's sitting there with Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff, Panay Sewell, Frank Ragnow. But what David Montgomery, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, he feels like to me a little bit of the glue with this offense. Like he obviously he's not a catching the ball of the backfield. I just went and looked. I was interested to see where he ranked in the NFL in different categories. Yards per carry last year, guys, he was top 10 in the NFL. Total yards, he was top 10 in the NFL. Yards after contact, he was 7th in the NFL. Yards per game, like total yards per game, or maybe it was just running back yards per game, he was 5th in the NFL. He was 5th in touchdowns in the NFL. Like this guy, everything he does, he is top 5 to 7 in the entire NFL at it. To me, if obviously outside of the stars, if there's a one guy where you're like, I need David Montgomery on the football field to continue to set the tone, to keep this locker room going, to keep this offense rolling. And obviously you have Jahmyr Gibbs now that's going to take a lot of those snaps. But guys, an offense without David Montgomery, like think about this. Or Jeff, you remember how we used to have the conversation about running backs in the Super Bowl, and how you're like, don't pay running backs because typically like, go look at the Super Bowl running backs in the last 10 years. Like they're rookies essentially, right? Like,
Yes.
Are you there? Yep. Right. So like you look at CMC,
Yes.
no Super Bowl. Saquon, no Super Bowl. Derrick Henry, no Super Bowl. Like the best in the game, no Super Bowl because the pressure is all on them. D-Mont, like with Jahmyr Gibbs, like Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be in that category. Guess what D-Mont is to him? Take the pressure off. Put it on him. Put it all on him and let Jahmyr Gibbs just go out there and play. D-Mont will take all the hard carries. He'll take all the stuff in the middle between the tackles. He'll go out there and if you need a bully ball, he'll be the bully ball guy for you. And he'll open everything up for Jahmyr Gibbs. So I just think like the most overlooked player and probably X factor on this defense or this offense and the team, take away the stars, give me David Montgomery. And I don't think he gets talked about enough and he doesn't get enough credit, to be honest.
Would it be fair to say, all right, for your X factor point, if I were to say, well, David Montgomery went down last year, Jahmyr Gibbs started against the Raiders.
I'm not looking at again, this is like the thing a couple seconds. Like I'm not looking at the X factor being like if this guy goes down. Like I'm looking at it, it's like take the stars out. Like who is like the glue in the X factor of this offense? Like who keeps this thing running? Like who is like this guy does like he does the dirty work. He's always there for you. He's consistent. Like obviously he was out a couple games, but I just think D-Mont is like very overlooked. Like no one talks about him a ton, but this guy went out there and got 1,000+ yards. He's top 7 in almost every category as a running back. And it's like he does it knowing that there's an RB1 in front of him with Jahmyr Gibbs and doesn't question it. Like think about if you take David Montgomery off this team and you have Craig Reynolds as your RB2 or a different RB2. I think that's a massive difference on this offense. And I don't think anyone talks about that ever because always the conversation rolls back to Jahmyr Gibbs.
For good reason, though, Boone. For good reason.
A great reason. And I don't want to take that away from Gibbs. That's what I'm saying. But you have to think about the pressure that gets off of Jahmyr Gibbs because of David Montgomery. Like Absolutely. This guy, he knows he can go out there and get 1,000 yards and 12 to 15 touchdowns. Like, like Gibbs knows that. Like they know that. Like it's just.
I always say that the running back thing, and I know I get a lot of flack for that, but D-Mont's contract to that guy up north, not bad. 3 for 18. I like it. I do like it.
Yeah. Good value. Great value.
If we're getting up there, maybe I'm a little more. So
I'm gonna 6.5 million and I'm out. There's no way I'm giving him 6.5. I'll give him 6. 6.5. No.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Jahmyr, we got some time. All right, we got some time before we have to even talk about that. You guys want to go around the NFL and look at some things that have been happening because a lot of
go around the NFL.
Okay? You know what? Cuts have been going on. All right, teams are making moves. I talked about it earlier. The Commanders, they picked up Noah Brown. You're kind of seeing it all come together. Any moves out there that surprised you guys, or maybe any moves that teams picking up players that stood out to you specifically around the NFL?
I don't know if any moves. I would say maybe like the lack of moves again by the Dallas Cowboys. I know here's one. They brought in Dalvin Cook. They brought in the ageless wonder Dalvin Cook. So if you want to talk about that, but the Cowboys, they're just so bad, and it seems like they just keep sinking themselves even deeper in the situation that they're in. So I think when you look at surprises, again, like Noah Brown's available. Noah Brown has played in Dallas before. You need another wide receiver besides CeeDee Lamb because Brandon Cooks, he had a good season, but outside of him, you can trust Jalen Tolbert? No. And that's a team that's going to have to air it out because you're not handing it to Zeke consistently. Rico Dowdle, watch out for Rico in the receiving game. Dalvin Cook now is your answer. Who was the running back they drafted out? Deuce Vaughn? Trusting Deuce Vaughn? No, you're not. They just lost Tyron Smith. You can act like the Cowboys, in my opinion, is probably the most shocking. Just the lack of moves, even the cheap moves, they're not willing to make.
What do you think, Boone? I know I saw the Dalvin Cook thing was a little. I drafted Zeke in fantasy. I don't know if I should be. I mean, he's still going to get red zone touches, but and I saw someone have it. Someone tweeted out, imagine this backfield 5 years ago. I mean, it'd be a pretty nice looking backfield. Yeah, but unfortunately, we can't do that. It's 2024. They're both probably cooked at this point.
Like you and Brandon Cooks in like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. What about you, Boone?
I mean, I don't. There's no one that really stands out to me. I don't. Noah Brown to the Commanders. I'm not 100% like that's probably the number one. I don't know. There's anything really. There wasn't really that much movement today, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the Noah Brown thing, I don't know what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. They still haven't gotten a contract done. You have Jamar Chase that, he's showing up to practice, and they even said, like, oh, well, he's going to be at practice, and he shows up like 15 minutes late in street clothes, and they're like, well, Zach Taylor's like, maybe I didn't mean this week, or, maybe it's not quite yet. I don't know what's going on with that. CeeDee Lamb got paid, so we didn't really talk about that at all, but he got his contract he wanted. So I guess that's really all that's been going on lately. I see people in the chat arguing about still about Jared Goff, which I mean, that's why I love talking about Jared Goff, man. People get fired up. It's so great. The quarterbacks, it's always quarterbacks. Doesn't matter who it is. I mean, people calling Goff MVP. Look, you started this, Boone. I think the MVP vote.
It's realistic.
I'm gonna vote.
Well, some people don't. Some people in their lives don't. Some people in their lives don't enjoy to be realistic. But
a vote's realistic. Winning that thing, completely different conversation. That's where the realistic part drifts away. If you're calling Jared Goff MVP again, smoking that rock from the 80s, there's no way. You'd have to have like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud all get hurt. Like they couldn't finish the season. Lamar Jackson probably too.
Yeah.
Can't have somebody else have like an emergence.
Yeah, I'm not as confident in that happening. Like MVP for Goff, I'm not there. And at Booner, the vote thing, like he made in his argument. We already went through that, but I don't know if I want that MVP. I don't know if with how this offense is set up, I don't think that's how it's going to go. I mean, unless he's just Matty Ice, and
that ain't happened.
But I don't think the offense it's not the same like when Matt Ryan won MVP. It's a little different. It's different. It's not as constructed the same. It's different.
No.
And Cardias is number one offense, number one NC in the NFC, Goff MVP.
I don't think you can just do that by default because you'd have to do that every year, and that's just not the case. Like there are better players on worse teams, in my opinion. And they're going to be like worst team could be like the number 3 seed in the AFC. I mean, that could be Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, could be anybody. And I think when you look at that, like most valuable player goes there.
I mean, the number one offense last year, I believe, was the 49ers. So Brock Purdy.
Number one team in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just obvious. Like the Lions are the number one team in the league. Win 13, 14 games, Jared Goff's going to be in the conversation. That's just a fact. I don't. That's where it's like, even if Joe Burrow like is putting up a year, like but I know last year there was a lot of guys out, but like Brock Purdy is the one that is a game away from winning MVP last year. He was one game. It was because he had the best team in the entire NFL. And it's the same thing with anyone in the NFL. Like if Kirk Cousins leads the Falcons to the number one team in the entire NFL and the best record in the NFL, he's going to be, and he has numbers, people are going to look at him and be like, yeah, Kirk probably should be in the conversation. Like that's just, to me, that's just a fact on any player. Like if Anthony Richardson had the Colts as the number one team in the entire NFL with 13 wins, there's going to be like Anthony Richardson's probably having an MVP season. Like that's just the way the NFL works. I think that's just a fact.
We saw
just talking too much. You just need to shut up. All right. Mojo 12. You'll have your way.
No, but we do agree with the same. When we make this case, when we talk about MVP, we always say that I just think there'll be too many guys in the race. I don't think it's more of a knock on Goff, but I guess unless it depends. Maybe everyone just gets hurt and has terrible seasons, and then Goff could win it, or a lot of guys have big years, and it's tough for him. It's not going to be last year, I promise you. There won't be 2 MVPs from the same team that are in the race. It's not happening this year.
Probably not this year, no. But last year, obviously, there was. But
yeah,
I mean MVP. It's Mahomes to lose this year, in my opinion.
Dennis Wick, I will ban you from the chat if you keep saying that. And then the guys, I'm not kidding.
His return.
For Jeffrey Collum, score ESPN.
Jeffrey Collum, no.
Don't put that in the air.
Yeah, don't. People that don't get the reference, Jeffrey Collum, he's not real. All right, it's not legit. I love the bit, but please don't read that and be like, oh no, he tore his ACL. I'm paying attention right now. The Tigers We got to get Raj back on. We got to get Raj
yeah.
back on. The Tigers are, let me double check right now. I think like 6 games out.
Making another push. They're making another push.
I don't know if I have that exactly right, but I want to talk to Raj this week. I mean, they're up 3-0 right now on the Angels. So, and they're in the top of the 4th. So we were focusing on Lions, but the Tigers are exciting now.
Show me some. It seems like there's 2 or 3 times every year where it's the Detroit Tigers. They're on a run. They're about to make the playoffs. They're on track, and then it falls apart. And then 2 months later, they're back on track. Like the Tigers, they have spurts where they're very good, but they have to show it consistently until like I think fans should be genuinely excited. Like be excited that the team's having success because not too long ago, like last year, they looked absolutely miserable, especially early on. But right now, enjoy the time, but they're not going to be making the playoffs. I don't see it. We've seen this time and time again recently.
Yeah, I mean they swept the White Sox. I think if they win tonight, that'll be their 6th game in a row.
Yeah, you beat the New England Patriots.
Klotzy,
like
Klotzy. I'm
stacking wins.
I'm gonna say this, Klotzy.
What's up, Boom?
You might be. I think you're wrong with this one because
the
Tigers. A month ago there was that like, oh, the Tigers might be in the race, and then they went away. They're like 30 games left of the season. They're 5.5 games back making the playoffs, and they've won like 12 of their last 16 games, or 12 of 15 or something. Like they are the hottest team in baseball right now. All of their young stars are finally becoming like actual dudes, and like you're starting to see right now. You're actually starting to see like some of these guys that it's unlike the Pistons. You know, like the Pistons, like you're just sitting there waiting for some of these young stars to take over and actually start winning games. These young stars, it's not like just random dudes that they brought in these are like draft picks and young guys that are 23, 24, 25 that are going to be on this team for the next 5, 6, 7 years. They actually have like turned things around and like they're actually winning games because of these guys. They have a very, very like, this is the first time since 2016, since after the All-Star break, they've been over 500. Like that puts it in perspective. Klotz, I'm normally with you with the Tigers where it's like, don't get to not the Tigers are back. Like they're going to have a chance to be playing for a wild card. Like this is legit. Like this isn't like a joke. Because I was joking around about it like a week ago with my cousin. I was like, there's no way they get back into it. Like there's zero chance. Today they're sitting there. Are they winning right now? Does anyone know?
Yeah, they're up. Jeff said they're 3-0.
They're up 3-0. They're about to be 4.5, 5 games back with like 30-something remaining. They have a decent schedule ahead of them. Like they play like 16 teams under 5 or 16 games under 500. Like they legit might have a chance to make a run at this thing.
How long do you think they can keep it up for, though, is my question. Because
I think the rest of the season.
You see these spurts all the time, but then it always dives down. That's why for it to fit my narrative as far as the Detroit Tigers making the playoffs, like I said, like be happy. Like I think this is like what you're going to see in the future. You're getting glimpses of it right now. But as far as the rest of the season, like you said, 30 games. That's still a decent amount of stretch to play at that level. Can they do it? Possibly. I'm just not convinced.
I'm saying like the spurts that like this isn't like a spurt. This is like a 15-game stretch. And I need Unk to come in here in a minute and lock in with me because like typically the spurts is like 6-7 game win streak. You're like, oh yeah, boy, this is like a 15 or 16 game stretch, like a really big sample size to where they throughout the season they sent Torque down, they sent Parker Meadows down, they sent specific guys down that were struggling, and they brought these guys back, and all these guys are confident now. Like these guys are like, hey, we're actually good baseball players, and they figured it out. Like this isn't like a 6-7 game spurt. We're like, oh, maybe the Tigers. No, dude, they've been doing this for like 16 games now, and they're not 8.5 games back. By the way, they're 8.5 behind the back of the division. They're 5.5 games back of the wild card right now. Just for the people who are trying to stat correct me, you're the wrong one because they're only 5.5 back to make a wild card game. So like this has been a 16-game stretch where their pitching stepped up as always. Like their pitching's been good all year, but their bats have been the things that need to wait. And now the bats, these guys have figured it out. And it's like the confidence is just continuing to build. And like there was that point, I think, throughout this stretch, the 16-game stretch or whatever it is, where people are like, oh, this is going to end. Like this is just and it just keeps going. And like I didn't believe it. Like a week ago, Klotzy, My cousin came to me and was like, yeah, like I don't know, like we were both like, yeah, I don't think that they'll keep this up. Like, and it's a week later, and like in a whole week you play 5 games, so like they're a whole 5-6 games into it. That's another stretch of games, and they're just still doing it. So it's like I don't think it's a fluke. I think that like this is what the fans have been waiting for. It's like these young guys, you've been waiting to see them take a step, and over the last month, like a whole month stretch, you've actually seen some of these guys turn into what you thought they were going to be. And I think that's where it's a little bit like, hey, the MLB is a little bit on notice. Over the last like 15 games, they have the best record in the MLB. Like that's crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean 8-2 the last 10. I mean, I looked at ESPN's. They have this playoff. The percentage they'll make, the chances they'll make it. They're at 3.8%. So I mean, the data would say they're not going to. I would tend to agree with that. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, the offseason for the Tigers, this offseason is going to be very significant because we know what this season was, right? We knew they weren't supposed to make the playoffs, but we'll see. I mean, this is a team that with young guys, they're playing really well. I want to, if Mike wants to, I want to bring in Mike because I know Mike's been, you guys have been dialed in, even if we're hanging out after the show. You guys are locked in. Mike, what's going on, my man?
Yo, fellas, just finished my fantasy draft, but I hear we're talking Tigers. So what's up, fellas?
Mike, what's your thoughts? 5.5 games out, 8-2 the last 10. Tigers, kind of exciting. I'm not gonna lie, exciting to watch.
I think it's like you're seeing a lot of like encouraging signs out of the younger players, but like if we're talking playoffs, I still think it is far fetched. Even though they do have a couple encouraging series down the stretch. I mean, they played like the Rockies, the A's, but they do also face like Baltimore twice, and they face I want to say Kansas City, obviously a divisional team. So. I don't know. I don't know if the playoffs is realistic. I think just seeing encouraging signs that they can carry over to this into next season, maybe guys like Torque finally heating up and being consistent, and a few of the other young guys. Obviously, you know what you have in Colt Keith now, and you see Parker Meadows heating up. So there's a lot of good signs. I think even them being competitive at this point is just, really what you want.
Yeah, what do you think, Gentry? Real quick, Jeff. Like, so my thing with, and I think Booner's bringing up good points. Like, it is different from the ups and downs that we've seen with the Tigers before. But what do you think it's the chances of that they're able to keep this up compared to going into another up-down drought? Because 5.5 games doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're this hot for this long, I think any MLB team can only keep it up for so long because it's not like they don't have talent, but we can agree that there is a lack of talent in some parts for this team. So how long can they keep this consistent?
I think like now has kind of been different than their past spurts because you're kind of seeing it throughout the lineup and different guys stepping up. So I think they could possibly keep it up for the rest of the season. I'm just kind of concerned. Obviously, they're going more to their bullpen pitching. You got like 2 starters right now. So like even if they did go into the postseason, I don't know how you're too confident in the pitching staff, even though they are doing, pretty well right now. But I don't know. I think like a lot of guys like Parker Meadows, like I mentioned, and a few guys, even Jace Young, there's a lot of guys that you're seeing like consistent good bats out of. So I think, they could finish well. But like my biggest thing is carrying this over into next year. Even if you don't make playoffs, you just want to keep this consistent bats up and, carry it into next year, and then next year be a competitive team, maybe make a couple acquisitions in the off season, maybe add a couple more bats. Obviously, you're going to have to do something to the pitching staff, but like I said, the big goal is just remain competitive. If they're coming down to the stretch and they are fighting for a wild card spot still, that's awesome.
I look at this. You guys see this? Sorry to transition, but I have to bring this. This is breaking news. Matty Betts is back in the CFL.
Oh damn! I was gonna send this to you guys.
He didn't even waste his time trying to make a practice squad.
He said, "I'm out. I'm going to the CFL." See you guys in Canada. He's going back to the BC Lions. He's going back to the BC Lions. Go chase another Defensive Player of the Year award.
He's going for back-to-back, Defensive Player of the Years. He went and learned from Hutch, and he's like, I'm going to go win another one.
Hey, Boone, Matthew Betts in the CFL, a machine. That's a machine, Booner in the CFL. How many sacks did he have last year?
Like 18.
18?
Like something just sick. Yeah,
I think it's 18 sacks. He's going for 20 this year.
Looked like Jared Allen.
20 something.
Hey, Boone, what if any repeats? Are we seeing him back at training camp next year?
Probably not. That was probably his
Run
last
it
game.
back.
Poor
The
guy.
Matthew Betts era is over, Boone.
Yeah, I mean, it was short lived, but he chased his dream. Didn't get to work out. Got to play. I mean, I know he played a little bit with the Bears. Like a cup of coffee with the Bears. I know he was like a part of their training camp or whatever. But he got a chance to go out there, test his skills, get better, and then he goes back to the BC Lions. So hey, Matty Betts, and I'm sure he got paid. I mean, 18 sacks. I'm sure they gave him.
Bro,
probably has the biggest contract.
Yeah. Go ahead, Boone.
You guys go. Go ahead.
I would say, I mean, the man's 20 years old. He's still playing professional football, and he's going to go out there and play some ball. I think he's living life very lavishly right now. I'd love to trade positions with him. Pause to the end of that. But Matthew Betts, that's the wishes. I think the people who thought that Matthew Betts was going to be an actual contributor on this team were seeing the reality of this Matthew Betts saga. Great in the CFL, not made for the NFL. He's going to go out there and have success. Best wishes to him.
It's fair.
Yeah, John Lewis says, makes me kind of sad, man. He only tried the Lions. I was only allowing the Lions to test him out. And then he put
maybe the Lions are the only one that gave him a chance to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the reason he signed with the CFL so fast was because no one else in the NFL wanted him. He had no other offers in the NFL. Like, if he would have had a practice squad offer anywhere else, he probably would have taken it. So not one team probably was like, hey, come here.
I do appreciate self-awareness. All right. And he probably, you know what? He went to training camp. He said, this Penei Sewell. I don't know about this. I don't know if maybe he knows he's self-aware enough to know, like, hey, I'm really good in the CFL. I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna go do that.
Like I'd be willing to bet even a guy like Giovanni Manu was probably like a household name if you paid attention to football in Canada, and was probably like the Penei Sewell of college football there. And so Matthew Betts sees that Giovanni Manu's out there, and Giovanni Manu's struggling. He's like, oh shit, like this ain't good. This is not good. Right?
Yeah,
he went out there. He did have a sack against the Chiefs. Glad he could have that moment, but that moment is now over. Flash in a bottle. That's all it was.
Yeah, that I'm gonna be eating good. All right, but I don't pray on his downfall, but for whatever reason, the downfall from the Lions, I got some pizza.
Should have made a pizza bet for you with DPJ or something. I don't know.
And well, there's always the woulda, shoulda, couldas. There's always going to be those woulda, shoulda, couldas. Yeah, I probably, you know what, Booner? I probably would have accepted it.
Oh, for sure. That's why I'm just looking. Looking
back. He definitely would have accepted it. 100%.
We should have put one on the Sudfeld and Fromm one. That would have been a good pizza bet. I don't think even me, I was almost saying it as like a troll. Like I was wishing it would happen, but like I really did not expect Jake Fromm to make this, even the practice squad over Nate Sudfeld. Like I was, I was in astonishment. So happy.
I mean, I'll say it again. I mean, Jake Fromm let me just check right here. Jake Fromm, he was 6 of 8. 8 attempts changed the trajectory of his Lions career. I mean, that's really the 8 attempts he had. He was 6 of 8 for 80 yards.
A star was born that day. A star was born.
Goddamn right.
That is wild.
I was dead wrong with Sudfeld. I don't even know what else to say. Dead wrong.
I mean, Booner, honestly,
I mean, I literally put it in my notes today. I was like, I just put
dead wrong.
I put in quotes. I said I was dead wrong, and then I put at the end Booner. Like I was like, I have to own up to some accountability. People say, Booner, you think you're always right. Like, hear me. I was wrong. Dead wrong. I thought Nate Sudfeld would be like Jared Goff's water boy, handing him his coffee at 6 a.m. for film every morning in the quarterback's room, like making sure his breakfast was good, that his notebooks were perfectly aligned on his locker. Like I thought it was dead wrong. I off on that one.
Boone, you know what? Kudos to you.
If there's ever a take to be wrong about Boone, it's about a guy being a water boy. So you got something.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're not losing much. And like even Doc came on here yesterday. He said, "You watch. Nate Sudfeld's gone, but come this time tomorrow, he'll be on the practice squad." Like most reports I was reading out of Lions camp from reporters all said Nate Sudfeld's going to be on this roster over Jake Fromm.
Yeah,
and my two losses this offseason is Nate Sudfeld and Matthew Betts. Like, Come on.
those
I
are
mean,
those.
tough.
Almost
those
your
are the
fault for
guys
betting
you
on
bet
those
on.
two guys.
Remember
Yeah, like,
that
I
you
should have
bet on,
known,
Boone.
dude.
You
I like
hitched
not
your
Booner
wagon
like.
to those.
It's not
those.
Booner like.
the two guys that was just bad from me. I have a lot of wins, but those are just two, like, it's like just those losses you look down and you're like, oh man. It's like losing,
can I
it's like
speak?
Michigan losing to App State or
Boone,
whoever
can I
that
speak?
was.
Can I
Yeah.
speak
that
as
was-
CPO of the path? You've listened to pretty much everything with me as far as don't put him on the path, put him on the path. Let this be it's a moment that's over. Let this be a learning moment, Boone. I'm the CPO for a reason now, okay? You got a lot going on. You got to worry about a lot of things up there. You got the post-game chugs, pause, and then you got everything that you can do with the Booner path during the live streams on the show. When we talk about putting guys on the path, it's where the CPO comes involved, Boone, okay?
Yeah, Sudfeld should have never been on the path.
I'm talking about Betts now.
Betts?
Sudfeld, we all knew wasn't on the path. I'm talking about
Yeah.
Betts.
Yeah, I thought Betts was. I mean, I thought there was a chance. There was a chance. I thought there was a chance. Honestly, like
No,
you
I
texted our group today, Klotz, and you were like, he's not
Stevie
even going to be
Wonder.
on the practice squad. And in my mind, I was like, I can't wait for the practice squad to come out because there's no way Betts isn't on the practice squad. And then it came out like an hour later, and he wasn't on the practice squad. I was like, oh no, this is tough.
This is a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I was wrong on DPJ. So, you talk for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, 10 hours a week, talking sports. You're not gonna bat 1,000.
yeah.
You're just not. Or you could be LeVar Ball and you never lose. Never lost. Never lost.
At the end of the day, I never lose. Do you guys remember my commercial? I don't
Booner
lose.
Booner
Yeah,
Betts.
that's coming back. Actually, that's
Booner
coming
Betts.
back. We're gonna bring that back.
You won
We are
last
bringing that
weekend
back.
too. 4-1. That's
4-1.
a winning weekend.
4-1.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
is.
college football is this weekend. The start, Michigan.
yes, it is.
The journey of
Did you just
Michigan.
sneeze?
No, I was laughing at easy.
Oh, I
I
actually,
mean-
actually said bless you. I thought you sneezed.
No, I was
Oh
trying
my god.
Wait,
Well,
doesn't Michigan State play on Friday?
yeah.
to-
Yep.
yeah.
Aiden Childs season. I mean, that's what.
That's going to be interesting. Like Michigan State's going to be mid as fuck, but I'm excited to see how Aiden Childs looks.
Maybe
Not
it's
much
Buffalo.
around him. Not much
You think
around him.
How many games are they winning, Lucas?
You think they make a bowl game? Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many fucking bowl games. They'll sneak their way into one. But I don't know. The Big Ten added a lot of schools, and I pretty much think all of those schools are better than Michigan State.
I'm gonna check MSU.
I'll say no, just out of spite. I'll say no. By default, no.
I mean, their automatic losses, I think, are probably what they play Oregon, Ohio State. Those are both losses. Michigan, The only thing I worry
play
about with Michigan is
Nebraska.
their quarterback. That's it. I mean, everything
No,
else.
bro. Michigan's gonna steamroll.
Yeah,
Michigan
yeah, I
State.
agree.
That's
I
not-
agree. So that's 3 losses already. Now I don't know their schedule.
If they
But
play
those are 3 right there.
Nebraska, I'll have to see. If they play Nebraska, Penn State, lock those in. They're gonna lose to Iowa too. They could for real lose to Boston College, and they're gonna lose to Purdue probably too. Their schedule is actually pretty rough. Like if you just look at how Michigan State is, they'll beat Florida Atlantic.
Wow.
They'll probably beat Maryland. They'll beat in week 3 a monster house Prairie View A&M. Have any of you guys heard of Prairie View and A&M before?
Never.
Yeah, but
Never.
Michigan
Prairie
plays the
View.
easy
Don't
schools.
disrespect Prairie View. They'll
Michigan's
sneak up
schedule's
on you.
brutal, Boone. What are you talking
No,
about?
I'm just
here?
saying, like,
Michigan has a bum.
that was the narrative the last few years was like Michigan plays nobody. And like again, like this was the problem I had last year with that. Like those comments was at the end of the day, like these schedules are made like 10 years out. Like you sign contracts, like the like every single college team has contracts with different teams. Like what is it, the year 2024? Probably like through 2020 or 2030, 2032. So it's like that's where it was like when the Michigan, like no one, like Michigan made these schedules when they weren't the best team in the country. So
Yeah,
like, and they were like, do you know what I mean? So that's why last year, like that was one of the comments I hated the most. Because then now you look at this year, like the schedule they made this year, the Texas, like obviously the Pac-12 we didn't know that was going to happen, but like Texas, that was probably signed like 5 years ago to play Texas. I think they actually were supposed to play Texas, or I think they play Alabama, or they were supposed to play during COVID, and it got pushed to now. Like That happens. Like when we were at SVSU, like, dude, we scheduled teams out for years in advance. And we did like 6-year contracts, 7-year contracts, home and away. Like that's just how it works. It's just the way it
business
is.
side of things, Boone.
Yeah.
Business Boone there.
Yeah.
But
I
people
mean,
like to write their narratives and they like to say,
Well,
oh, they play
that's-
an easy schedule. They made this summer and they went into this year going, let's play the easy. The schedule was made 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Lucas said that about Michigan too last year, but Ohio State's had the similar schedule this year. Theirs is very easy too. But I looked it up. Michigan State's over/under is only 4.5 wins. I didn't think they were going to be that bad. Is that like actually like
Hey,
the range?
Take the over. Take the over, as Aiden Childs says.
I didn't
Take
think
the
they were gonna be
over.
that bad. Like,
Cool.
I think
I
5.
mean,
I actually do see 5 wins on their schedule. FAU, Prairie View, Boston College, BC probably, Purdue, and then you have to win one versus Indiana, Illinois, or Rutgers to get to 5. Like Indiana's going to be decent. Rutgers is going to be good this year.
Bill
Maryland,
O'Brien
I think,
beating
will be
the
decent.
MSU.
I don't know about
Bill
Maryland.
O'Brien's going to go in there and lay it down. Lay it down on him. I like Bill O'Brien in college. He's going to recruit well. He's going to be very solid.
Dude, I don't like looking at the schedule. There's no way they don't win 5 games.
You'd think.
I don't know, dude. That middle of the schedule, Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan, like that's brutal. And then I
mean, you could
Indiana's
drop all
not
4 of those in a row and still be fine.
Yeah, but like Indiana's not going to be an easy game. Illinois, I don't know. I'm sure about how Illinois is going to be this year, but Purdue is probably the worst in the Big Ten. Rutgers, I think, is going to be better than people think this year.
I mean, but you play Purdue, Rutgers, and Indiana all at home.
I would say this is the thing, though. Like, they could get over 5, but
take
they
the
only
over.
have 3 gimmies. Like, all the games, you're like, like, it's not like confidently Michigan State. No way.
I don't know. I want to see the QB play before
If
I kind of judge that,
Well,
but like,
yeah,
I
that's
think 4.5 is still a good bet. I would take
That's
the over.
everything. If Aiden Childs is good, I mean, you know how quarterbacks, the value of having a good quarterback in college. You can win 5 games with a good quarterback. That schedule. So, but if he stinks, then yeah, you're talking something different. But I actually like Aiden Childs. I'm not even an MSU fan, but I like Aiden Childs a lot. I think he's going to be pretty good this year, and I think he'll be good enough to get them at least 5 wins. I mean, I haven't dialed into the roster, but I know they had a ton of players come in. It's kind of a different era of college football where, you're not really, you're not building the program and, it takes a long time. You can put together a pretty good roster in like one off season. So with transfer portal. So I think they can win 5. I do. I think that's probably most likely. I see mailbags coming in. I want to start with burning issues. Mailbag. Trevor Nowatzki was brought back on Lions 53, giving them 7 linebackers.
Yeah.
I like the kid, and obviously the Lions do, but what the fuck? Main squad? Question mark.
He is on the 53. He's the 53rd guy. Shout out Saginaw Valley. Shout out Trevor Nowatzki. I actually here, and I'll pull this up for the people real quick. If we want to address the Trevor Nowatzki stuff, I'll come with something here. Hold on. Let me pull this up for the people. He's a good player. Like I think the only bad part about it is that you do have 7 linebackers, so that is questionable. But in Arizona this year, right here, the Lions claimed Trevor Nowatzki off waivers. He had a 76.8 coverage grade, 41 coverage snaps, only 13 receiving yards allowed, and 5 stops. Like that's pretty good. 41 coverage snaps, only 13 receiving yards allowed. And we already know what he was from last year when he was with Detroit. It's like he doesn't miss tackles and he flies around the ball. Like he is everywhere. Like he's a good linebacker. The fact that they brought him in on the 53-man instantly and not just the practice squad probably shows that. So you're muted.
Hold on. Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
No, he's muted.
No, I wanted to see how long it before he knows.
7 linebackers is a little aggressive.
It is.
A little aggressive, but I mean, I get it.
Shout
Shout out Easy. Easy says mailbag for Klotz, Gentry, and the Costco guy. Should Jeff give me Hurts for Richardson and Chase Brown? That
You're
is
the Costco guy, Boone?
Jeff,
He is.
you
Easy is.
No. I think he's talking about you.
Yeah, I think
You
he's
gave
talking
the 5 boom.
you gave the boom. He's just disappointed.
So confused.
He's just disappointed.
What did I miss?
No, but hey, guys, is that trade good? Come on.
Who do you? So you have Hurts?
Hurts for Anthony Richardson and Chase Brown.
Who's your backup quarterback?
Trevor Lawrence.
You fucked yourself there.
To be honest, I'm just keeping Hurts. I mean, it's too early.
Yeah, I just keep her. I like Chase Brown a lot, though. I was pissed when Easy took him. I wanted Chase Brown.
And I got
Sorry,
Trevor Lawrence.
Got Nick Chubb, though.
Yeah, I would. I'm going to keep. And I'm not. I already know the answer. It's a big fat doom. No, it's a no. I'm not trading for Anthony Richardson. There's no way he has a better fantasy season than Jalen Hurts, unless Jalen Hurts gets hurt. I just don't know. I don't know what level people expect Anthony Richardson to play at this year, but I don't think it's worth he's going to be better than Jalen Hurts. I do not believe that this year. So
Some would
if you're
say
playing like
winning
a
the division,
dynasty,
though.
if we were playing maybe like the dynasty where you keep him and you keep a guy for a long time, maybe you invest in him. Nah, not this year. I don't think so.
Be smart.
Nah, I don't think so. Chase Brown, I do like. I do like Chase Brown. Sound Kayak Mailbag is Lucas really Brohio from the Connor Stalions documentary. Sure sounded like
I haven't peeped it yet. Probably honestly watch that fall asleep tonight.
You're gonna find yourself in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
I do think Brohio is Klotzy. That does feel like something Klotzy would do.
Who is Brohio? Who is that?
You'll see him in the documentary.
I was a Connor Stallion supporter because he kind of went on to my narrative of fire Ryan Day, because Ryan Day's like absolutely the one who started all of this, in my opinion. It's just a weak move. Urban Meyer would have never been in this situation. Jim Tressel, you name them. They've been winning natties with those squads.
Hello.
I'm pretty sure he talks about Ryan Day a little bit in there. Not like too much, but he brings him up there, so you'll probably like that part.
Does he go astray at him, or what is he?
Somewhat.
Should.
Somewhat.
The fraud on the sideline, a fraud with jet black beard guy. That's what he is.
Jet
He
black.
pays attention more to his beard
guy.
than the on-game results. Run game works. Get away from the run game. Let's air it out. Shut up, dude. Get out of here. Get off my sideline. Promote Chip, the head coach. Make it easy, seamless.
Promote Chip as head coach. Tyler says Mailbag, did Betts flee the country so he doesn't have to hand deliver Jeff 2 pepperoni pizzas?
Ooh.
I mean, there's an argument certainly for that. I didn't ask for them to be hand delivered. I wouldn't go that far. It would be great. Maybe Booner, we could work something out. I don't know. Maybe
with Matty Betts.
No, maybe
see him in my life.
When we get pizza, maybe you hand deliver them. All right.
I'll get the pizzas until 100%. What else were we gonna do? Like go to
we got to get that. I need the
DC's
footage.
Pizza and do like a pizza buffet or buffet or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I get it. I get where you're at.
That sounds so good right now.
I don't even know if CC's is still open, but that place used to be awesome.
I went to one in Orlando. It was great. It was beautiful.
Well, phenomenal.
Is that the one that Coach mentioned? Coach mentioned a pizza place in Sinclair in the Shores.
CC's Pizza?
No.
CC's Pizza is a buffet type pizza.
No, do you know of an elite pizzeria in Sinclair Shores?
Oh fuck! What's its name? 1 second. Give me a second.
He mentioned it in
lock in.
It's that one I sent you guys a picture of it that one time.
Coach, I need you, Coach. If you're in that chat, drop that name. Oh, there you go. Coach got it.
Zanos. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, that's one of them, but that's not the one.
I like the way that one sounds. We're going there. We're going there to get that pizza. I like that. There's some Italians in there. I'll tell you that. We're going there.
Well, and I'm gonna hand deliver you pizza so you don't get the choice of where it's from.
Bro's gonna get some 2 hot and readies.
No,
he's gonna get the hot.
There was no. What I might do, to be honest, is I might go to Kroger and get like 2 frozen pizzas, heat them up, and then bring them over. We never specified like what pizza.
We talked multiple times that we'd be having this lunch at Brooklyn at very fine establishments. If you get him like a Red Baron pizza, bro, that's just a kick in the nuts. You can't do that.
I owe this man 3 pizzas. If we go to like a fine establishment, that's just $100 out of my pocket.
Hey,
what are you?
3 large pizzas?
What type of pizzas you eating?
I mean, if you go to a nice place, pizzas are like a large pizza's like $25 with some toppings.
So where does the 100 come in?
30 times 3 is like $90. $90 with a tip. We're talking a couple of hundred, over $100. I'm not feeding the family here. I mean,
you don't have to get me an entire pizza. We can do slice. If we go to Brooklyn, I love you. Easy in the chat. We go to Brooklyn, you give me a slice.
I'll get you some nice pizza. I would never do that. I'm actually get you a nice pizza. We might spread it out a little bit to where you get one here, one there, so it's good pizza, quality pizza. We're not going there and doing 3 pizzas for the boys sitting down, and Booner's going to drop $150 on 3 pizzas and a tip. I would have taken the shake back right away.
He was trying to get me that DiGiorno, which actually that DiGiorno ain't bad now. I mean, I like
DiGiorno's good. Hey, there's a couple good. Red Baron's not bad. That was kind of disrespectful from Klotzy, to be honest.
No, well, when you're talking about Red Baron compared to legit pizza, there's a gap. There's that Matty Betts to
there's tears
James Houston gap.
To be fair, if we would have made maybe an all pro bet, it would have been the high end pizza. But if we're just talking about a guy that he's on the CFL now, maybe it's a little lower.
You know what I wonder, guys? You know what I wonder? If he made the roster, what would be the energy from Boone right now?
Like
what pizza would he demand from me?
I mean, at the end of the day, you guys know how I work. I'm gonna end up buying a nice pie for the boys. That's how it's gonna be.
We're gonna buy it from Ray's, Boone. That was the place I got it from. It's New York style. I sent you guys a picture of it a while ago. Actually, it was, but it's the best spot in the shores. Coach Walk can maybe attest to it. I don't know, but New York style is the best type of pizza, in my opinion.
I'm getting. You know what? I know I'm getting hungry. All right. I appreciate you guys, all of you in the chat. Much love to you. We just hit 9.1 thousand. It feels like time is flying. 9.1 thousand subscribers on this YouTube channel. We started 7 months ago, about to be. Shout out to all of you. Much love to you. Thank you for tuning in. Even us talking pizza, you guys are still hanging with us. Tomorrow, we'll be back. I want to get Raj back on, talk some Tigers. So we'll
do that tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to him. Until then, take care. Stay safe out there. If you got DiGiorno's, put it in the oven. All right. Have a good pizza. Until tomorrow, we'll catch you guys. Stay blessed. See ya.